Okay. Good morning. To begin with, the maximum capacity of this room is 120 people sitting. There are no standees allowed. We are working on getting a live feed upstairs in room 208. The room is at the top of the elevator, so any standees may not remain in this room. You must go upstairs to our conference room up there. And we are, like I said, working on a live feed. So please bear with us for a few moments until I get notice that it is up and running. Thank you.
Cell phones. Make sure they know.
Oh, yeah. We'll get there when we start.
Are you applicants?
I have not seen Brenda. Is she here? He knows that you have not paid, so we might be jumping straight to this one.
The first two.
You're fine. We put this here because we knew variance people do.
And they're not even here.
It's just that time of year. Oh, that's right. It's very hard to hear in here. We try to turn the microphone up, but sometimes it doesn't work. That is happening.
Did you read every?
Packet was small. It was really nice, so I felt you can't see it sideways. Oh, that,
Until
yeah.
all of a sudden this started coming out.
That, yeah.
Getting emails and
The lone soldier.
turned for a paper.
Yes, I tried to communicate.
We got the tech upstairs to get the overflow to go.
Charles is on. Yes, he went out to tell the chair.
We did, and he announced everybody that's standing has to go upstairs and hit off.
These are the residents.
Are we up and running?
We are not up and running, but he is working on it, for the third application.
Okay.
We can try to start the first two if you'd like.
Okay. All right. Good morning. Before we start, I ask that all cell phones be on their silent mode, please, so that we do not have any interruptions. Again, good morning. This is the Citrus County Planning and Development Commission public hearing for June 16th, 2020. If you'd like to join us at this time, I invite you to please stand for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Dear Lord, please give us the grace to be understanding, patient, and tolerant. With these attributes, we can conduct our work in a manner which is pleasing to Thee, our county, and its residents. In the Lord's name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning. If we could could have the roll call, please.
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Good morning.
We have the following Planning and Development Commission members present this morning. Robert Bass, Chair. Stacy Worthington, First Vice Chair. James Royce, Second Vice Chair. Richard Barnes. David Bramblett. Kurt Stone. Carol Scragg, alternate. And Chuck Dixon, School Board Representative.
Thank you. If any person decides to appeal any decision made by the commission with respect to any matter considered at this hearing, he or she will need a record of the proceedings, and for such purpose, he or she may need to ensure that a verbatim record of the proceedings is made, which record includes testimony and evidence upon which the appeal is to be based. During the public portions of the meeting, individuals are given 3 minutes and representatives of an organization are given 5 minutes. When anyone wishing to speak comes to the podium, please complete a yellow form to hand to the recording secretary. Please print your name, address, and the number of the application for which you are speaking on the form. The yellow forms can be found at the podium by the door. If representing an organization, a letter of authorization must accompany the speaker. Comments will be limited to the topic being heard. Please state your name, spell your last name, and give your address for the tape record. At this time, this is an opportunity to come forward and address the commission on any issues that they may wish. This will not include the 3 applications we have right now. There'll be the opportunity to speak on those later. Is there anyone wishing to speak on any other topic? All right, thank you. I believe we have minutes for May 5th, 2020. Can I have a motion to approve?
Motion.
We have a first from Commissioner Bramblett and a second from Commissioner Worthington. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
I have one correction.
I'm sorry, I apologize. Yes, sir.
On page 4, commission questions, paragraph 3, Mr. Pigeon stated that Clear Sky Health has several facilities around the county. I believe that should be country.
Thank you. That is correct. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good. With that comment, or with that correction, any other comments? Seeing none, can we have a vote? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Staff announcements.
Yeah, application V2208, which was Mackenzie for Blouse, has been pulled off of the agenda. That is no longer needed, so that is not going to be heard today.
All right, thank you. If we could move on to variance 21-16, please. Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. I apologize, I jumped ahead. Ex parte communications. I'm sorry, Ms. Lynn.
Let's just take, with regard to V-22-09 and V-21-16, let's take those together first, and we'll do the other one when that application comes up. Have you had any ex parte communications regard to those 2 variances that you need to disclose for the record? And we'll start with Mr. Dixon.
No, ma'am. Site visit on both.
None.
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 Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. All right, now we'll move along to item 21, V21-16. I thought,
V2209, I said 08 was canceled,
Oh.
not 09. Sorry.
I apologize, my bad.
That's all right.
I never had an 08.
I didn't
Yeah,
either.
it was advertised, but it never made it to your packet because it was pulled before that.
Oh, okay.
Just
that's
if
what threw
anyone
me.
received an ad, it's kind of a public thing.
All right, that threw me off. All right.
Good, because
Thank
I'm
you.
sitting here digging through my package. Wait, which one am I missing?
If we know one's canceled in your packet, we will tell you
you.
beforehand, so you don't review it. You're
All right,
fine.
Let's go backwards then for a month. V22-09.
Yes, good morning.
Thank you.
The
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Before we start, is the applicant present for V2209? We are not sure. Yes. Okay. And we still have fees that haven't been paid. Hate to put you on the spot. The postage and advertising fees haven't been paid. Do you have that today? No one billed you. Okay. We will take care of it. Go ahead. We know they're here, and we'll talk to them afterwards and get a bill from you. All right.
All right. Thank you.
The applicant is requesting a 29-foot waterfront setback and a 36-foot right-of-way setback. This is an aerial view of the subject property. Looking onto subject property 12138 West Gulf Breeze Court. This is looking east on West Gulf Breeze Court. Here we are looking on West Gulf Breeze Court. And this is the site plan as submitted by the applicant.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If the applicant could come forward, please. Good morning.
Good morning.
If you could please say your name for the record.
Mike Wolfer.
Okay.
What else you need? Well, I just wanted to say I hope you support the application for variance. We worked very hard on the site plan using the ordinances that were given to us in pre-meeting with Amber back in, I believe it was almost March that we met with her, and then got our application in April. As you can see, it's a very constrained site. It has a pre-existing septic tank on it and septic field, which limits even our options of where to put the house and how to build the house like that. So we were very careful to take into consideration things that came up at the meeting we attended with you all back when they were considering changing the ordinance. It was a public hearing, but some of the things that we tried to implement were to minimize the size of the house design itself. So we went with a two-story, but only it's less than 800 square feet of roof area to minimize runoff. We went with a half-inch spacing on the wood decking to make sure that didn't count as coverage, and to minimize any runoff from the thing from that, as well as the stairways. We really couldn't fit anything over to the left because of the septic field and the septic tank, and so we had to stay over on the right, which is the shortest part of the lot. If you look on my right, the lot, it's only 78 feet to the front of the seawall, and on the left side, it's 85 feet. So what we're requesting goes up to that little point there. When we take it 5 feet off the property line, is we're trying to get that close so that we could have a deck that we can access a very small footprint for residential area, but we wanted a deck that we could get up there and access both, and we have to have two, so we had a lift on the other end of it. But that's why we designed it like that and put a little large a deck on it that way. So the 29 feet is an average of what the house on the right is, and the house on the left is within 15 feet of the water. The one on the right is 36 feet from the water, and so we were requesting 29 feet from the back of the seawall, not from the water. And we also needed a variance on the road side, just to get a 600 square foot per floor house in there. We needed a variance on the front of the property because it's only a 40-foot right-of-way. It requires a 50-foot setback, which meant we had to be 30 feet from the road right-of-way. And so we wanted to come in set to 17 feet, I believe it was. House, just to give you a reference, the house on the right-hand side is within 10 feet. I think it's 6 feet of the road. And so it's a very unusual situation where you have one house pushed way back on the right side, the other house on the left side is within 20 feet of the water. I can't think of what else we could do on this particular one using the codes. We were very pleased because when we submitted, it was found sufficient. We got the staff report back, which is in your packet, recommending that you approve it with a few minor conditions, which we're happy to live with. What's happened since then is last Thursday, we received a memo from Amber, which completely turned everything around because I guess there was a new ordinance passed by the county commission, which I was not aware of until that point, sometime at the end of May. And then Amber submitted a supplemental thing basically saying you should deny the application. And I'm having a hard time with that particular part of it because we went through a lot of expense, time, and effort to submit under the current regulations that you had at the time of the application. And I've been in government before too, and I've never heard of retroactively enforcing new regulations on people while they have an application or a permit in. It'd be like someone coming in with a building permit application, submitting it, and during that time while you're approving it, you change the code while their application is at the time of submission. So I don't know why that was submitted in here. I just received notice of it last Thursday. We really came here today. It's our And I wanted to thank all the people here for supporting us, but we couldn't, it's our 43rd wedding anniversary today, my wife and I, and so we couldn't have thought of a better anniversary present from you guys, but to approve our application. So we hope that our intention was to try to live with what you guys were requesting at the other meeting, what we thought your concerns were and what we thought the regulations were. And we did that. We went through a lot of expense, but an application fee, and thought we were all set. So I don't know how you're handling that. It's a legal issue, I would assume, on whether or not you can retroactively apply or a new regulation. And as far as the fee, we'd be happy to pay you today, but no one's told us or submitted anything to us other than last Thursday after we submitted the application. So we've been waiting for that. We'd be happy to pay that fee. If you have any questions I had some questions on some of the information that was submitted in the packet by the staff, because I had no idea where they came up with it was. If you could, in the packet, there's one, I don't know if you can pull it up, but it's page 35 of the packet. And it's I guess it's the staff's site plan for what it said is the building envelope for it. And I didn't quite understand how they came up with that. Nor I had what I submitted as mine on your page 35 of the packet for the commissioners. It shows what I guess is a little green rectangle and is supposed to be the building envelope.
That is correct.
Yeah, and there's no information that's attached to that shows a calculation or how they came back that or the setbacks. But the site plan we have is there was some discrepancy on where the mean high water is, and so obviously we couldn't do anything because we're in the middle of getting a seawall put in there. The forms are up so we know where the back of the seawall is, and from the other meeting that we heard is that the county takes the back of the seawall as the mean high water line unless you can present one at your hearing, which we can't, we couldn't possibly do. And so we're having difficulty on how you can get a rectangular, the staff can get no matter how narrow or what they widen it to, how they can come up with a building envelope like that when you have, the lot is not waterfront, it's not rectangular, you've got to go with the 78 feet on one and 85, so at an angle like that. So we can't figure out how they did that particular part of that recommendation, although it didn't affect the initial recommendation. There is no calculations whatsoever on the new envelope they're saying with whatever the new law is that they're saying. So I guess that's where we're at. We hope you'll approve it based upon what was submitted, based upon what the regulations were at the time, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you. Staff have any questions?
First of all, nothing's been applied retroactively. The staff report says it's inconsistent with the comp plan. That hasn't changed. What the planner was doing, it's not in your packet, so that's why y'all are confused probably, is she was trying to show you with the new stormwater setbacks, your building envelope went from a tiny sliver to much larger. So that was what she was trying to show you. It seems like 35 feet is now the allowable waterfront setback for this lot. You're asking for 29 because of that 8-foot deck. Have you taken a look at the deck, or can you reduce that, or think you can get to 35 feet?
Yes, the deck we went with a smaller, we could have gone with a house that big, and it still would have been undersized for the neighborhood. But what we did is keep a smaller footprint for the runoff, but we needed a deck for the access to and also living area too. I mean, it basically provides us living area, an elevated deck to sit out and look over the water. I mean, could we cut it back a foot?
It would be 6. It would be 6 foot. You're asking for 29, and 35 foot is the requirement.
29 feet from the back of the seawall.
Okay, and you don't want to reduce the deck. Is that what you're saying? You don't want to reduce the deck
To 36 feet?
to be able to meet the 35 foot. I think you've answered it. Okay, thank you.
No, that's why we asked for a variance, was to get to that.
Any questions from the commission?
I have a question.
Yes.
So the staff report, the proposed findings of fact, one of the 8 is found to be false, and that's the one that says the application is inconsistent with the comprehensive plan. And then the reason they're saying it's inconsistent with the comprehensive plan is because the buffer of 15 feet or greater can't be established from the waterways during the construction. And then it also mentions that there were some trees that have been removed and taken. Subject property appears to have fewer trees on the site than seen on the aerial views of the property taken in December of 2021. So my question is, if for condition number 2, runoff and erosion control measures, what is your intent?
The intent is what I put in thing. It shows we proposed a berm, trying to do a berm there.
You're going to do that before construction, because this is
Of
clearly
course.
states
Of course.
before starting land disturbance activities.
Yeah, I guess I would dispute that we're not in compliance with the comprehensive plan. Someone issued our contractor a building permit to repair the seawall. And at that time, they have to go in and completely rebuild and tear out everything that's in there. So there is no vegetation there. It's protected by the silt that they put behind the new seawall. And the forms are there. It's, almost to the process of where they're ready to pour the cap. So of course, there's not going to be any vegetation there.
But
And
your
of
intent
course,
is to put the berm
I-
or swale in
I have
before
not
construction.
seen- Pardon?
Your intent is to put the berm or swale in before
Yeah.
construction and land
I
disturbance.
can. I could put it in as we're building the seawall, but
Okay, thank you.
I don't think I'm allowed to move dirt until I get a building permit.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Wilfer, when did you acquire this property?
I'm a little hard of hearing.
When did you buy the lot?
When did I buy it? About a year ago.
And when you went through your due diligence, did you realize the limitations on this size of lot for that area?
Not really. I mean, there was no, I know they're proposing that there's some kind of notice that's put on each deeds. When you transfer a deed, you're supposed to put that it's in a high velocity zone, it's in such and such. There was no such thing on mine when they did the legal work on it.
You did no investigation to see what setbacks might be required from water
Well,
or right of way?
Setbacks, yes, but again, we've lived in Florida a long time, and we have bought other waterfront property before, and not what you call non-conforming lots, and we've never run into a situation where a county would prevent you from using the property for a single-family residence in a pre-existing subdivision. I mean, there's houses on one side that's 15 feet from the water, another one 35 feet from the water. The whole row of houses to the left of us are all within 15, 20 feet of the water.
Right.
So in my experience is that, no, you wouldn't be prevented from building a house on any lot in Florida that's a pre-existing subdivision, because it'd be a taking of property.
We don't enforce rules and regulations that were in effect years or perhaps decades prior to this, and I'm sure that's an old neighborhood. All right, that's fine. I have no further questions.
Any other questions? Looking at the site plan, you had stated that there's an existing septic tank and
Mr.
leach-
Chair, I'm sorry, can you speak closer to your microphone? I can hardly hear you.
I apologize, Ms. Lynn.
That's okay. I know he was having a hard time hearing you.
All right, is that better?
Yes.
All right. So, looking at your site plan, you have an existing septic field and existing septic tank on the left side of the property. I realize there would be a cost incurred, but as I see it, that tank and septic field could be relocated to the right side of your property. You could shift your property, your home, to the left, and you could reduce the size of your deck maybe from 8 feet to 6 feet, and you would either achieve our 35-foot setback or become very close to it. Would you contemplate taking that course of action to improve the site so that you are possibly within our regulations?
Again, on the septic system, tear it out and move it to the other side. It was permitted by you guys. I mean, it was permitted by the county. I mean, I'll do anything you want me to do to build on that lot.
All right.
But, yeah, if you'd like that, make that a condition of, that we move it, alternate it, flip it like that, if that's the only way I can do it. Although I can't technically tell you if I can do that because of the septic rules.
Right.
Well, if it's a new septic, my understanding is they have to be 75 feet from the water. the OSDI or the nitrogen or the hydro thing. If because it'd have to be a completely new system. The regulations are different when it's an existing system. I can add to it or upgrade it to like put the nitrogen in there, but I don't have to replace everything if it's working and operating. By tearing it out, you're throwing in stuff. I'm not a sewer engineer, and I can't tell you. I can't guarantee it can fit on the other side. If it's 75 feet, it can't fit on the other side. There's no way to put that size field in there. This is the only place to put the septic and field as I can see it. But if you want to make it a condition, I'll try.
All right,
Okay?
thank you.
Thank you.
Staff report, please.
Good morning.
Morning.
Joe Hockedale, Principal Planner with Land Development. Obviously, I'm not Amber. I'm here filling in for her today. So this application is requesting a reduced waterfront and right-of-way setback for the construction of a single-family house. You can see the subject property there on Gulf Breeze Court. The lot is... My apologies. The lot is 0.14 acres in size, and it is currently vacant with a partial riprap seawall that is under construction. So here you can see some aerial views of the subject property. This is looking back towards the seawall. This, I believe, is looking towards the right-of-way. Here you can see looking towards the adjacent property, I believe, to the east and to the west. I believe this is across the street. And this is a view of the riprap that's currently under construction. Looking at one of the adjacent properties on the waterfront side and the other one. This is the one that's 36 feet from the water. This is, okay, so when this was originally submitted, we had the 50 foot, because this is a coastal A zone. So it was the 50-foot setback from the mean high water. There wasn't a mean high water line established on a survey, so we went with the inside of the concrete cap for the permit for the riprap seawall. Because they have a permit, that concrete cap and that riprap can be installed and completed. And so this available building footprint was based on the setback from the right-of-way, the 50-foot setback in a coastal A zone, and of course the two side setbacks. And that 50-foot was taken from the inside of the concrete cap of the riprap based on their permit. This available building envelope has since changed. We did do a memo that was supposed to get to you guys in your packet, but it was at the last second, and I guess it didn't make it in there. But based on the approval of the ordinance that went through changing the waterfront setbacks, where they removed that 50-foot requirement in a coastal A zone, it's now 35, or that 6 average and no closer than on either side. This site can now go to 35 feet from the inside edge of that riprap seawall. And so that's where the change came from. Because that ordinance amendment actually gave them more room, we did a revised findings of fact showing that the available building envelope went from 177 square feet roughly to about 1,568 square feet. So it actually gave them a lot more room to put something in there without requiring a variance. And so here's the site plan. The applicant is proposing a 1,000 square foot dwelling, or 1,000 square foot footprint dwelling. The average footprint in the area is about 1,270. The average waterfront setback here for the 6 closest is 27 feet. And so even if we took that average of the 6 closest and no closer than either side, it wouldn't really help them on this one because that one is 36 feet away. And the average right-of-way setback here is 21 feet to the edge of the right-of-way, and the applicant is asking for 16. And so based on what the request is and what the waterfront setback ordinance now says, it went from It was a minimum request to now, it's really not a minimum request because their available building envelope is big enough to fit what they want with some adjustments. And so with that, the findings of fact are not all positive, and we did have conditions.
Thank you. Any questions for Joe?
I have one.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have the actual building envelope now based on the modifications to land development code?
We don't have one created like on a slide. We only have an approximate square footage.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I have another one, I'm sorry.
Yes, I'm sorry.
I didn't think I did. Okay.
You only allow one at a time.
So, proposed right-of-way setback 17 foot. If, from the center line, if that was 20 foot, it could be administrative over review, and then we wouldn't have to have a variance for the front setback?
Right. The 16 feet that they're requesting is actually from the edge of the right-of-way and not the center line.
Oh.
And so the front average setback that was done by staff appears to be about 21 feet from the edge of the right-of-way. And so if they did move the structure back, and they took it from the edge of the eave, which that was another code change that happened several months ago. We went, instead of going to the eave of the home, we now go to the wall. Mm-hmm. I think it's a 1 foot overhang, so technically it's 17 feet the way this is shown, but they requested 16. But if they did push it back to 21, they would not need a variance for the right-of-way.
Okay. Now that's all. Thank you.
All set? Mm-hmm. Okay. Yes, Commissioner Bramlett.
I just want to say, in fairness to Mr. Wolfer and the fact that that unfortunately he's like the very first variance to come through since the change with the 35 feet, and in light of the information that Mr. Hockadell just told us with the 1,500 square foot building envelope, which we do not have in our packet, I do not feel comfortable voting on this application. I'm going to tell you that right now. It's whatever you guys think, but in Mr. Wolfer's best interest, I'm not voting on this application because I don't feel like I have all the information.
All right, thank you. Any other comments or questions?
I agree with Mr. Bramwood. I hear a lot of, I think, maybe, and supposed to be, and I don't have the slide. I think I want to get a full picture before I make an intelligent vote on it.
All right, thank you.
I will say I would be in favor of continuing this application till such time when exact details and information could be provided, and then we could maybe see it again.
Okay. Any other comments?
I concur with Commissioner Worthington. I think they need a continuance to address all these loose ends.
All right. Yes, yes, sir. County Attorney, Ms. Lynn.
For two things. First, I think the applicant might, we want to make sure we give the applicant an opportunity to ask questions of staff if the applicant wishes to do that. And secondly, it would be up to the applicant whether the applicant wants to continue the application. And all of you sitting here today have to vote on any application that is brought forward for vote. There's no reason for any of y'all to abstain. So,
okay.
Actually, that was 3 things. Sorry.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you very much, Joe. Do you have any? All right, I'm sorry.
Maybe ask the applicant if he has any questions of staff.
Yes. I was going to ask that after public comment.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Yes.
Public
No,
comment.
no.
Public comment.
I had one question for the staff and one question, maybe a legal question, but I've never heard of doing retroactive zoning or building or anything else. You can't go back in time and enforce standards on someone who submitted an application appropriately, on time, sufficient, and so and so. I mean, I've never heard of that. Is that something that's allowed in Florida? I'd ask that of the legal counsel.
She is not your legal representation, so therefore she
Well,
can't.
I don't want you guys doing anything that would be illegal. So I mean, maybe one of you could ask her.
I won't let them do anything illegal.
Okay. Second one
We would
is
have our hands slapped quite hard.
Second one is my point. I wouldn't mind. I'll do whatever you guys want, but the staff's had this for 2 months. They had a chance to show an envelope up here. I still don't know where they came with their right-of-way setback. That certainly wasn't advertised. It says, the advertisement says that we have to meet a certain code, and that code gives the state the new setbacks from the road. And they don't say they can do an administrative variance there. Now, in the old land development code, it says that, but that wasn't advertised as this particular part of this hearing. So I guess, I mean, if you could overlay what it is we can do without a variance onto a thing like that and present it at the next hearing, I'd be happy to delay it. So that we could see, because otherwise they don't know. I mean, we have to decide how, if I can even fit a house in there that I want. You say I can redesign everything, but I mean, how many times do I have to redesign stuff? I designed it one time to what met all the codes and asked for the variance. And now you're saying there's new requirements that I don't need one for some reason. I can fit a 1,500 square foot house on this, no problem. I'd love to do that.
Mr. Chair, there really weren't any questions in that, so I don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean, the questions, I'd be happy to delay it if the if it means delaying it, means the staff coming back and presenting to the commission here so they can make a decision on what it is that I am allowed to do. A building envelope, just like I would have thought would be part of this so that they could see it and then judge if I had a reasonable request to them.
So if I understand you correctly, are you prepared to request a continuation of this, or are you asking for us to move ahead with what is currently in front of us?
I'd do it just the opposite. It's up to you. If you're going to deny it, deny it. I mean, you said the staff presented you and say, here are the setbacks, but I don't see them up there. I don't see anything that resembles a setback on the site plan to see how I affect that building envelope. I don't even know what this new building envelope is they're talking about.
That's why you need a continuance.
And I question the one that they did present to you because it's a rectangular and there's no possible way it could be rectangular and have those setbacks.
Mr. Chair, hang on one second. So the new code is going to benefit you. So in my, no, it's 100% going to benefit you. Like I said, it's unfortunate that you were just the first one to come in. My suggestion would be to take a continuance, get a little bit more information. The staff is not going to design your property, nor are we, but they'll tell you. I know that this staff works with the applicants very well. We've had many people come before. The new code is going to help you. It's going to make your site a little easier to develop. So with that, we can't vote on a continuance, but you can ask for one, or we vote after you ask.
So the ball is in your court as far as whether you want us to vote on what is currently in front of us, or do you want to ask for a continuation so you may work with staff to understand and review how our new ordinance could help you on this particular application. So it's totally up to you as to which way you want to go.
Mr. Chair, you might want to also tell him that if it's denied today, he can't come back and request a variance for at least a year.
I can't come back with what?
He might need to know that.
All right, so if we vote today and we vote to deny your application, you cannot come back with a new application for a new variance until June 16th of 2023. Whereas if you ask for a continuation, we'll work on that at the next meeting, the meeting after that. I don't know exactly what's on our staff's agenda.
The next available meeting that it can get on the calendar.
Right, and in this case, that would be July 21st. Okay, we can do July 21st and announce it here. That's fine if you want to do so. They're trying to help you. They really are, and so are we.
Well, I appreciate them trying to help. I just wanted to make sure that the help I get is that there's something that I can look at and see why it's not being allowed.
Well, I think
because this one was allowed other than they said the dirt's disturbed while there's construction going on. That was the only reason it wasn't.
It actually wasn't allowed, though. That's why you're here. If it was allowed, you wouldn't be here.
The variance was they were recommending the variance be approved with certain
They actually
conditions.
weren't. There's no recommendation, just so you know. There's no recommendation.
Oh.
They provide conditions and they provide 8 findings of fact. For us to
I'll
devote
I'll ask for a variance. I mean, for
continuance.
You ask for a continuance?
Yeah.
All right.
Motion.
Second.
Wow. We have a motion from Commissioner Bramblett and a second from Many. With that, we have a vote. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Nay. Motion carries for continuance.
And we'll put this on the July 21st agenda, so it's
All right.
very, very tight, but we can do that and work with them between now and then.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Our second application is
Oh, his friends are still here.
fee 21-16.
And I do want to
And-
say, is Ms. McKenzie here today? I don't know that the applicant's here. B2116, McKenzie Permitting for Villain, not here?
Going once? Going twice? No representative for V 21-16?
Hope she's down upstairs.
Yes, sir.
Are you Mr. Villain?
I'm one of the neighbors, I'm not.
Oh, okay.
Nope, then we need the applicant, and we do not see the
Check
applicant.
the overflow room real fast.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Coutu.
Yes, I can.
Nope, right there's fine. Thank you. Maybe there was something in the skin there.
Oh.
Did you get my email? No, I gave you my cell number. If you ever need to use it, it's in your email.
Sometimes if they don't show up, I've never seen that happen before. So we don't, well, I know that, I wonder if they go to the next meeting? You just reschedule. You just reschedule.
I think it has to be rescheduled.
That would be the first one that's never shown up for their thing.
Maybe she thought she only had the one that we didn't have on our schedule today, and then that was replaced, it was removed. And maybe she didn't know she had to.
I know. Checking all the time to make sure everything's
Yeah,
All right. All right, so seeing as our next application is not here, Ms. Coutu, how do we handle, or Ms. Lynn, I guess it'd be more of a legal question. How do we handle this? Do we move it, or are they denied, or what is the situation in something like this?
You can move it to the end of the meeting and consider it at the end of the meeting and see if the applicant or Ms. McKenzie shows up, and if not, then you can deal with it then.
All right, thank you very
It
much.
might be a while, I'm guessing.
All right, very good, thank you. So, with that, we'll move on to our next application, which is PUD-22-03, Green Mills LLC for Gulf to Lake Associates, Meadowcrest.
With regard to PUD-22-03, have you had any ex parte communications you need to disclose for the record? And we'll start with Commissioner Dixon.
No, ma'am.
Site visit.
Site visit.
None.
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 Site visit.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Quite welcome. All right, with that, if we could have an introduction from staff?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
This application proposed to amend the Meadowcrest Development of Regional Impact Master Plan. Meadowcrest is located between State Road 44 and County Road 486 in the Crystal River area. The application would allow conversion of unused commercial square footage for attached residential units in the commercial and/or office park areas of the master plan. The expected development site is heavily treed and lies on the northwest corner of North Meeting Tree Boulevard and State Road 44. This is looking east on State Road 44 and west on State Road 44. The application site is on the right. This is looking west on North Meeting Tree Boulevard with the application site on the left. The Meadowcrest Recreation Area and Pool is across North Meeting Tree Boulevard from the site. This is an elevation rendering provided by the applicant. Thank you.
Thank you. Is the applicant here? you like to make your presentation?
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
My name is Oscar Sol. I'm the managing partner, founder of Green Mills Group. Address is 3323 West Commercial Boulevard, Suite E220 in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. My business partner and I started Green Mills about 10 years ago now as a small business. Our very first community that we ever developed is located here in Citrus County. It's called Forest Ridge Senior Residences. We started the company for the sole purpose of developing and owning attainable, affordable workforce housing. We've since completed a second development in Citrus County called Colonnade Park Apartments in the city of Inverness. And I'll tell you that the overwhelming reaction to our two completed developments here in Citrus County has been positive. These communities, they tend to lease up immediately within 30 days usually. We have waiting lists of tenants. Most of our tenants are retirees who are living on Social Security, maybe a small pension, maybe they sold their house, they have assets, but they make a modest income. The other side of our tenant population is working people, working families. These are people who have jobs. They may work at the Publix deli, for example. They may run an office at a doctor's office. Paralegals, assistants, people that work at hospitals. Overwhelmingly, most of our residents work or they are retirees living on a fixed income. We had such a great success with our two completed developments in Citrus County that, very frankly, we very much would like to build more in Citrus County. We see that there's a tremendous need here. I think it's pretty well documented. I'm not going to sort of belabor the point. I think everybody here, even behind me, will agree that there's a need for attainable workforce housing in this county. So we've been looking for property to do another development. And we came across the Meadowcrest DRI. We've known Joe Capicelli for a couple years now. Matter of fact, about 5 years ago, we amended this very same DRI. And if we can, if staff, I think I can control this. Yeah, I want to show it. There we go. Perfect. Do I have a pointer here? Let me see.
It's not a PowerPoint, so we're going to have to
Okay.
scroll for you. It's a PDF.
No, that's perfect. But do I have a laser pointer with this thing or no? No, it's not a laser pointer.
Yes, should be
Is
one
it?
at the very top. But
This thing? No, that's okay. 5 years ago, we amended this DRI to allow for 3-story multifamily apartments on the property on the other side of Meadowcrest Boulevard, which you can see directly behind like the Chronicle building. It's that vacant piece that's wooded. I don't know if you know what I'm seeing there, but I wish I could point to it. But it's just on the other side of Meadowcrest Boulevard. There's also 3-story apartment buildings already located within the DRI on the north end on Meadowcrest Boulevard.
Pull it over that way. It's on my screen. Pull it that way.
It's not
The
going to
other way.
work on
Yeah,
that.
I see
it's
it.
not going to. Oh, you see it?
Yeah, it's up top on the
No,
Is it?
that's mine.
Oh, there it
That's
is. There it
mine.
is. See it up there.
Julian Banjos.
Look,
I'm
it's up
trying
there.
to make it work
We
and
like
it
herding
doesn't work.
cats.
Pull to
It's
the
okay.
other side.
Unfortunately,
I think I'll just describe it,
We're
but
very
but
low
but there are 3-story apartments already located within the Meadowcrest DRI called Summerhill Apartments, and those are located right on the corner of 486 and Meadowcrest Boulevard. That property also has a vacant land adjacent to it, which I think allows for, I think it's 190 or so apartments. Joanna can correct me if I'm off on the numbers there. What I'll say is, regarding the staff report, we are at 100% in agreement with the staff report. We don't take any issue with the staff report. We're totally okay with all the conditions noted in the staff report. I do want to make two points of clarification. One, currently the staff report mentions that we are requesting to convert up to 230 apartments. We heard a lot from the neighbors, and they're concerned about density. So we're willing to reduce that. I've already said publicly that I would reduce that to 179 total units, so we can cap that. I would like to have further discussions with you all, get some feedback from you after you hear everybody, to potentially reduce that even further. I'd like your advice, your feedback on what you think might be an appropriate density. I am very flexible. I do not want to harm these people behind me. I don't want to harm their neighborhood. I think they have a lot of fears, but very frankly, I just simply, from what I've seen from Forest Ridge, from Colonnade Park, the impact those communities have had in the surrounding neighborhoods, I just simply don't agree with their concerns and fears. I just the evidence that when you just look at what's happening with those communities, the things that they're worried about just simply haven't come to fruition there. So I do want to highlight two very important findings within the staff report that I think are very prudent to our discussion. Number one, the staff report says there is no net increase in transportation impacts from this proposed amendment. None. That's because we worked with staff and our engineer to come up with a conversion factor that is based on fact. It's based on the ITE engineer tables, and the idea basically is that if you build less commercial will generate traffic. And we're simply converting that commercial use to apartments so that we don't generate any more traffic. In fact, if we were actually to develop the entire property as we're proposing with 179 apartments, that would reduce 5 times as little traffic as if the property were developed as currently permitted as of right with the commercial uses that are there. 5 times as little traffic if you just do the math based on those ITE tables. So very important to note, we are not going to increase any traffic. Of course, if you compare that to vacant land, will there be more cars there? Of course there will. Of course there will. It's vacant land right now. But we're not increasing any traffic based on what's currently permitted to be developed there now. The second thing I want to point out in the staff report is that granting this request will not adversely affect the public interest and would be generally compatible with adjacent properties and other properties in the district. It's a very important point that the staff report makes. And why did they make that point? Well, there's already 3-story multifamily housing permitted within the Meadowcrest DRI. It's already an allowed use. You're not introducing a new use into this district. It's already there, existing and permitted on some of these other properties. So that's a very important finding within the staff report. But we had a good meeting, and obviously been reading the Chronicle, been reading a lot of the comments, had a productive conversation yesterday with many of the residents that are here today, heard a lot of their concerns. I do want to address some of those concerns. There's some things that are within our control that we can do to mitigate some of their concerns. Some things, there's nothing we can do about it. Are there going to be more people living near their homes? Yes. Is it going to be rental? Yes, it is. Are we specifically proposing rental housing for people of modest incomes? Yes. I'm not going to change that. I can't do anything about that. What I can do is make sure that it's going to be aesthetically a beautiful building. It's going to have proper buffers. We're going to do a great job managing it, keeping it. And don't take my word for it. Go to Forest Ridge, go to Colony Park, see it for yourself. And some people have done that. And even their own response is that they're well-maintained, nice communities. And they're all for it. It's just when it comes to do I want it near me? A lot of people, unfortunately, they don't. So what are some of the concerns that we've heard? The primary one is that it's just not compatible with Meadowcrest. They're saying high density, 3-story multifamily apartment is not compatible with Meadowcrest. But again, as the staff report and as I said, we are not introducing any new use into the DRI. The 3-story multifamily apartments are already permitted uses within this DRI. So that's a very important determination for whether it's compatible or not. It's not like we're bringing in an industrial waste facility or something that's just completely not even permitted in the DRI. That's not happening here. The 3 stories is already permitted within the DRI. So again, that's why I feel that it is compatible. It's already there. There's a lot of talk about the park and the impacts to the park, that they're going to lose the park. Number one, nothing in this action is going to do anything to actually alter the park. This property is not part of the park. It's a vacant piece of property that's been planted with pine trees to basically get an agricultural exemption, but it's not a park and it's not part of the park. It's near the park, but it is not part of the park. It will do nothing to alter the park whatsoever. Will our residents go to their swimming pool, go to the private swimming pools in their communities? I highly doubt that. Why? We're going to have our own swimming pool. If you go to Forest Ridge, you go to Colony Park, we have a resort-style swimming pools. They're going to use our swimming pools. They're going to use our amenities. They're going to use our, they're going to use our amenities. There's no need for them to go across the street and climb over a fence and try to use a private swimming pool. I don't think that's going to happen. There's been a lot of concern about property values and what's going to be the impact to our property values. They're saying our property values are going to go down. So I took a look at Zillow.com, which is sort of the easiest, most source of information that I could find, and I looked at the property values surrounding Forest Ridge and Colonnade Park, and I looked at when we completed construction versus today. And I'm not trying to take credit for the fact that the values have all gone up. I'm not here telling you that they went up because we built. I'm simply stating the fact they have not gone down. The property, like, if you just look at the historical values, you don't see any blip or any sort of noticeable impact from when we completed construction. So I don't believe that the facts would support the notion that property values are going to go down. And there's countless national studies that talk about multifamily housing impact on single-family homes, affordable housing impact on single-family homes. And there's simply no evidence to suggest that that will reduce property values. I just don't believe that that's going to be the case. And I think you have two examples in Citrus County where you can see that that just simply didn't happen. You're going to hear that Meadowcrest is a deed-restricted community. And we can't do this because it's a deed-restricted community. The deed restrictions don't apply to this property. We've had our attorneys review it. We've had our attorneys do the title searches. There is no deed restriction applicable to this particular property. The other thing to note is that there are some age-restricted, deed-restricted communities within these villages, but not all the villages are deed-restricted to 55 and older. As a matter of fact, there's actually some of these homes in Meadowcrest are not age-restricted. There are families living in Meadowcrest. So introducing rental housing that might be for families is not contrary to even all the deed restrictions within the villages. So that's very important for you to keep in mind. I think that, as I said earlier, it's very important that you hear everybody here. We had a very good discussion. It was cordial. I think we'll keep it cordial today too. I think I heard somebody say that this was like David versus Goliath. And I'm like looking around, I'm thinking, wait, who's the David, who's the Goliath? I kind of feel like I'm the David here. These guys are the Goliath. But my point is, like, you need to hear them. And I would like to get your feedback. I'd like to come away here understanding how you guys feel about this and what, if you have any recommendations for what the appropriate density is. I am willing to work with them. I'm willing to work with you. I've already said it's not 230, it's 179. But I think after you hear everybody, after you hear the staff report, I would like to have a substantive conversation with you all to see what you all think might be appropriate. I can take any questions now, or we can have a discussion after you hear the staff report and you hear everybody here. So thank you.
Thank you. Any comments from staff?
Just one, talking about access points. I know we discussed that a little bit. Can you
Yes,
elaborate a little bit?
thanks, Joanne. If you could bring up the aerial map again. I do want to clarify that right now there is an existing driveway with a deceleration lane that's meant to be shared with the commercial Old Winn-Dixie property that's right on 44. And we have no problem making that our primary and, in fact, only entrance. The only thing I don't know is whether the fire department is going to have to review that and see if they need a secondary access point on Meeting Tree Boulevard. But we're willing to have that be our primary entrance, and potentially any driveway on Meeting Tree would be a restricted access maybe for the fire department only. There's a way I think that Joanna can craft a condition to that, but I would just say it only if we're converting to apartments, because I don't want to restrict the current use of the property. If it's developed as commercial, I don't think there are any restrictions with the number of driveways on Meeting Tree. So I don't want to restrict the current property owner with a condition like that. But if it's converted to apartments, I would say we have no problem with it being primary entrance on State Road 44. That will hopefully reduce the amount of traffic that gets into the Meadowcrest area. But we're totally fine with that. One other point just reminded me regarding the private roads that are there, the Meeting Tree Boulevard and Meadowcrest Boulevard. You're going to probably hear that those roads are private. You're going to hear that the residents are paying for the maintenance of those roads. They are paying for the maintenance of those roads. That is true. However, so is the commercial property owners in the Meadowcrest DRI. They are also contributing to the maintenance of those roads. The owner of this property has been paying their pro rata share based on the square footage of the property towards the maintenance of those roads for over 30 years, and the property's been sitting there vacant. There's been no traffic at all, but they've been paying for over 30 years. So I understand the residents' concern there, but the reality is that everyone's sharing in the maintenance costs of those roads based on the pro rata cost, based on the square footage of the property. So I just wanted to make that point, but thank you.
Any other questions?
No, thank you.
Any questions from the commission?
I have some.
Yes.
Thank you very much. How long ago was the construction on the other two projects you have in our county? How long ago were those completed?
Forest Ridge was completed 7 years ago, and Colonnade about a year and a half, 2 years ago.
And the modification on the previous PUD where you were permitted to do the age-restricted multifamily, that hasn't been constructed?
No, and my understanding is that that property is under contract with a self-storage developer. It's been sold. It's been sold, and I don't know if there's any permits in for that property yet as of yet, but my understanding is it was sold to a developer that is looking at doing self-storage.
Okay, that's all I have.
Any other questions from staff? I have a couple questions. Did I hear you correct that you'll maintain all of the buffers that are stated in our code?
Yes, sir. My understanding is that the code requires a Type C buffer, and that is 15 feet minimum, but suggested to be 20 feet. And our conceptual site plan has the 20 feet all throughout. In some areas, we'll have more than 20 feet. But yes, we have no problem with the buffer. In fact, there's actually very mature oak trees planted all along Meeting Tree Boulevard, and there's also a very dense pine forest there. I think that there's an opportunity with enough of a buffer where definitely we're going to keep those trees that are already there, and they're already a natural great buffer that's already there. And secondly, if we can keep some of those pine trees, it's going to create a very, very nice natural buffer area.
Okay. I realize that we have a conceptual plan in front of us. Do you have any idea what the impervious surface ratio is of that particular concept plan?
Not specifically. Not specifically. I couldn't answer that. Maybe 50%. It's 40%. But I'd have to check with my engineer to run that calculation.
Okay. Any idea on the floor area ratio?
No, but I can get back to you on that. No.
Okay. Also, looking at the traffic, has your consultant taken a look at what the daily traffic volumes are, a comparison between the existing use and the proposed use, and also what is the volume that would happen during the AM peak hour, the PM peak hour for the existing use and your use, so that we can see what that reduction is that you have stated?
Yes, and I think that's in the traffic report that Joanna has. The intent of the DRI and the conversion factor is to keep it, basically to keep it count for count, essentially not increase the traffic at all. But the point is we're limited to 12 units per acre. So when you just do the conversion of all the commercial, you end up with like something like 600 or several hundreds of apartments could be converted. But because we're limited to 12 units per acre, that would only be 179. So it's about 5 times less. But it's in the staff report. There's a detailed traffic study in there.
All right. Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
The 3-story buildings, do they have elevators?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
What are the ratio between 1 and 2 bedroom apartments?
We usually go about 50-50, half ones, half twos. We might put in a few 3 bedrooms, but our primary unit mix is half ones, half twos.
Any further questions?
I just have one.
Yes.
Have you received the grants yet?
No, sir. I mean, I didn't want to get too much into detail on that. It's a very esoteric process, but we do have to go through a very complicated process in Tallahassee to secure funding for affordable housing. The applications will likely be due sometime in November, and we might know if we're going to get selected or not probably by January. So not yet.
So if you get turned down, you're going to move forward, or?
We haven't made that determination, but it's a major factor whether we get our funding approved or not, whether we move forward with purchasing the property or not. It's a major determining factor. I couldn't answer you right now, yes or no, but it's a pretty big component of that decision.
Thank you.
Any other? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Can we have staff report, please?
Okay, this is an application to amend the development of regional impact for Meadowcrest. Meadowcrest is development of regional impact, meaning that the state, back in the 80s, felt that it was such a large development that it had to have special standards for development because it would have regional impacts. Those statutes have changed quite a bit over the years, and now when you want to amend a development of regional impact or a DRI, you go through this process, which is a PUD process. This is not a rezoning. This is a change to the master plan of Meadowcrest, and because it is a text change with that conversion factor, that's why everyone in Meadowcrest received notice about it, because the Meadowcrest DRI has a text change proposed. So here is the Meadowcrest DRI. You can see most of it is PDR, which is planned residential development. That does not mean it's residential, but it does mean it has a master plan on file. And this is the Meadowcrest master plan. So this is what's being proposed to change. They have a lot of different types of units here, and they have, you'll see on the top right, I have zoom-ins in the staff report and also in your packet. They have a couple different uses there. First of all, they do have some single-family detached. The single-family detached is not at all low density like some of the public input says. It's actually about 4.5 units per acre. They have 9,600 square foot limits on those lots. Those are in yellow, and then you see some orange. That is the cluster housing that's allowed. Both of those have been pretty much built out to their maximum. In fact, the cluster housing in the orange actually exceeded it. But you'll see down at the bottom a conversion factor that was approved some time ago that allows unused industrial square footage to be converted to cluster housing. Now, cluster density is even higher. It's about 15 units per acre. Those are 3,000 square foot lot minimums. So they have some very high density already out there. They don't really have any low density already there. The white area there on the left is attached residential. That is the category that you heard the applicant say is already existing. That is limited to 12 units per acre. The 3 stories that has come up a lot is something that I suggested. This particular area, as well as the industrial conversion to the attached age-restricted housing that Commissioner Worthington talked about, limited to 3 stories after public input. So I suggested the applicant consider also having that criteria as 3 stories. The Meadowcrest DRI is silent on height. They really can go as high as they want to go with the land development code, which is, you're not in the coastal high hazard here. You can go as high as you want. Over 50 feet, you have to increase setbacks. They're not planning on high rises, so they were perfectly amenable to accepting 3 stories. So we have the 2 conversion factors that are existing. Where they're trying to put this is in an office and commercial area. That's the blue and the red there at the bottom. And I'm going to zoom in a little. Whoops. There's my conversion factor. Let me go back. Blue and the red there is office and commercial. Now don't focus too much on office versus commercial, because there is a criteria in that note over there on the table that says they can mix match those. So it could be office or it could be commercial. The DRI is doesn't give us a lot of idea what is office versus what is commercial, other than they suggest commercial means retail or restaurant or amusements. Don't give us a lot of criteria, but it's basically commercial. So when we're looking at a conversion factor, although they talked about a supermarket, it doesn't have to be a supermarket. It could be a supermarket. You know, the Winn-Dixie is right there with the same zoning. It can be a Super Walmart. It can be a Target. It can be a Olive Garden, or it can be a lot of other things. Everything that's retail or commercial or office. But looking at the IT, the transportation engineers, who I certainly rely on for the experts, their category for attached residential, based on that with commercial square footage, would give me 1,000 square feet, would issue 6.94 units. Now, why this is important is because it's not contributing more traffic. This is a conversion table. They're not asking for additional numbers of units. Yes, they're asking for more people, but they're using the table that's already approved in the DRI to say, instead of commercial square footage, which brings this much traffic, we're going to take that much traffic and assign it to residential. So that's where the conversion factor came in. There's 2 of them already. This would be a 3rd if it's approved. So this is zooming into that area. You can see the commercial and the office park wrapping around. There is a large DRA there as well. As far as access management, you heard the applicant talk about that a little bit. I did want them to address it because apparently it has come up not only in the public input you received, but also in their meeting. The DRI is very specific as to their access points. That's one of the things that was hashed out over many, many public meetings back in the 80s. And so you can see very small arrows there on Meadowcrest Boulevard, on Meeting Tree. You see very small arrows leading in, and I guess the pointer's not going to help me on that. But there are no arrows on this commercial site right on 44. That's why in the staff report I say no direct access. But you can see, as he talked about, right in between there is a shared access point. That's where they're talking about using their primary one. That seems to be what residents, at least the applicant has conveyed, don't want access onto Meeting Tree. They have 3 access points on the Meeting Tree per the DRI already approved. They don't want to use those. We can put a condition in there, suggest a condition that says primary access would be the shared access point in the DRI on 44, and an emergency access point in Meeting Tree. It would be a gated, something for the fire, or if there's an emergency in the complex, they can exit. Not unusual, so we can put that in there and maybe put a provision, something like, if approved by the fire marshal. I definitely don't want to step on their toes. So there are several conditions here if this application is approved. I did want them to put a high limit on how much they can use this conversion factor. We have it on the others, so I wanted it on that. You heard him say we did have 230, and he's talking about 179 or even lower. The attached residential category here allows 12 units per acre. I've already said there's some 15s in here. There's some 4.5 unit per acre. 12 is an existing. But if he wants to do up to 179 attached residential housing, that would change condition number 1. You have the conversion table that I talked about. Condition number 2 is saying it can be placed in this area. It is limiting the buildings to 3 stories, including parking, and it says they have to meet all other LDC criteria, including parking, buffers, landscaping, impervious surface, and other factors. I heard some questions about floor area ratio, impervious surface, etc. Those have to meet Land Development Code standards. The DRI is silent, so they do default to the Land Development Code. And condition number 3 is incredibly important. All other provisions of the Meadowcrest DRI shall remain in full force and effect. I would also think we would add the 4th condition talking about the access point directly on the primary access on 44, assuming approval with FDOT, but it's an existing access with an emergency access onto Meeting Tree. That's it.
Thank you very much. Any questions from staff? Sorry, any questions from the applicant? No, sir. Any questions from commissioners?
I have a question.
Yes.
I'm just I drive by this site 9,000 times a day. I know exactly where it's at, what it is. I'm trying to wrap my head around this access. I see that arrow right there, and I know that property to the left of it is Winn-Dixie, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. The shared access that they're talking about is going to be on the right side of that Winn-Dixie building, used to be.
Right. Okay, Winn-Dixie is here.
Right.
I'm so short. And there is a driveway. You don't see it. It's
Right.
just an apron.
Okay.
I'm going to talk loud so they can pick it up too, but it's there. It's a shared access and it's on the DRI as approved. That would be the use that they can do.
Right. Okay, so, and then there's the light right there that's at Meadowcrest Boulevard, Dollar General, all of that. Is that I can't remember, is that a raised median right there, or is that one of those suicide lanes?
I don't remember, I'm sorry.
Yeah, because my thought is they just redid that entire area down there at Rock Crusher Road and Highway 44 where they have that raised median because it was a disaster where they fixed and did the Circle K. That particular access point right there, if we only allow them one access point, if the application was approved, we only allowed them one, you can't turn left right there at that, or you're cutting through that Winn-Dixie parking lot, or whatever it used to be, the Winn-Dixie, now it's the Pedium, or whatever. We all know what I'm talking about. So now we have to create people going down to the Rock Crusher light and turning around and doing a U-turn at that light right there. So that's a fairly narrow turn right there too, just so you know. Like, I could probably make it in my car, but there would be vehicles that couldn't make that. So I don't know that trying to restrict the applicant to one access to appease others is the safest option there. So I would just want to know if, in fact, something were to be approved and this were to move forward, he were to build, is that something that engineering would be looking into? And we're going to say, okay, we're going to make it one access because that's what the people in Meadowcrest want. But in reality, it's really not the safest option for anybody that's going to travel on 44, not only the people that are going to be coming in and out of the new development.
All very good points. I'm not going to pretend to be a traffic engineer. I will tell you that the access up there with their driveways were well thought of by way smarter engineers than I can think of, but agreed. I think if we did put that condition in there, not only would I want the fire marshal's approval, I would want subject to approval with engineering division. You're correct. That may not be a traffic safe condition. It's possible.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If this were developed underneath the existing regulations for commercial, how high could buildings possibly be?
As high as they can develop. 50. Once you get above 50 feet, you have to increase. I think it's 2 foot setback for every 5 foot of building height or something. It's very small, so there is not a limit here. They're not in the coastal high hazard. They could put high-rise office building there if they wanted to.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that. And
Yeah.
also, if I heard you correctly, Meadowcrest itself is considered high density?
It would be somewhere between our medium and our high, depending on what you're looking at. The single-family residences are 4.5 dwelling units per acre. That's somewhere between our medium residential and our high residential. The cluster housing is certainly high. That's in 15 dwelling units per acre.
Okay. Thank you very much. With that, any other questions? Thank you very much, Joanne. We're going to take about, well, why don't we adjourn at 10:30? It's about 10:18 right now. We'll start again at 10:30. Thank you.
Yes. Had to leave 3 times this past 2 weeks.
Thank you. At this time, the public portion of the meeting will now be open. If there is anyone present in favor of the application who would like to speak, please come forward to the podium. As a reminder, individuals have 3 minutes to speak and organizations have 5 minutes. When speaking on this application, please address the board. If you have any documentation that you want to be entered into the record, please provide a copy for the recording secretary. Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of this application? Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Seeing none at this time, if there's anyone present opposed to the application who would like to speak, please come forward to the podium. As a reminder, individuals have 3 minutes to speak and organizations have 5. A letter of authorization from the organization must be provided. Thank you. If you state your name for the record, please.
Good morning. My name is Attorney Ralph Brooks, and I represent Save Our Village, an organization. I have a letter of authorization, which I'll hand to the clerk. I also have a memorandum of law handout with enough copies, I think, for most of you, which I'll hand to the clerk. It's nice to be here in Citrus County. I'm board certified in city, county, and local government law. I've served as an assistant county attorney for Sarasota County, and I've also been the land use and litigation attorney for Monroe County, which is the Florida Keys. I've also served as the city attorney for Bradenton Beach, St. Pete Beach, Madeira Beach, and I'm currently a contract city attorney for the city of Naples, and also just up the road for the town of Yankeetown in Levy County, where I've served for more than 5 years. I wanted to come and explain to you a little bit about the correct standard of review for PDs and amendments to PDs. The Florida Supreme Court considered rezonings and PDs and amendments to PD rezonings to be quasi-judicial, with one caveat. They set up a 2-part test in the Brevard County versus Snyder case in the Florida Supreme Court. So first, the burden is on the applicant to show that they're consistent with the comprehensive plan, and that means every goal, objective, and policy in the comp plan. They also have to meet the procedural and substantive requirements of the Land Development Code. And once they do that, the county can still deny an application such as this if there's a legitimate public purpose for denial and a legitimate public purpose to keep the existing zoning. And I'm going to explain to you why there is a legitimate public purpose for the existing zoning as part of this master plan. The Florida Supreme Court doesn't further define what legitimate public purpose is, but it has to be something that's related to planning concerns, zoning concerns. It can't be something that's wholly unrelated to why we're here. The Florida legislature, for many years, with the ELMS Act, beginnings of growth management in Florida, going back many decades to when I was still in law school, they had a process called the development of regional impact. That's because these projects that are this large would have impacts beyond one city, sometimes beyond one county. They would have regional impacts because of their size. So you had to fill out what was called an application for development approval, and they were this thick, and they cost a lot of money to put together, and they were reviewed by every state agency, the county, the regional planning councils, what we call the Department of Community Affairs, FDOT, and they looked at the impacts of the projects to make sure that they would not have adverse impacts. As part of the DRI, they set up a master plan, and this area was designated in that master plan for commercial and professional office. It was not designated for more residential. The reason they did that in DRIs is for a couple of reasons. Internal trip capture, so that people that live within this large DRI would have a place to shop, a place to work. It would create places for the residents of this future area. We believe that the existing master plan should not be changed. By putting a new conversion table, you're changing the PUD significantly. Before they were going to allow industrial to go to multifamily, but here now you're going to take the commercial and the office away, and that's very different. And we believe you should keep the same PUD master plan and not allow this change in the tables. You'll also hear today a little bit about what is competent substantial evidence. And the Florida case law says competent substantial evidence is sufficiently relevant and material that a reasonable mind would accept it as adequate to support the conclusion reached. Even layperson testimony, such as the people behind you that are not experts in some particular field, can be considered competent substantial evidence if it's fact-based, if it's observation testimony, if it's about relevant facts and documentary evidence such as photographs, aerials, maps, things they've personally observed. No one knows better the traffic jams that they experience and have seen and witnessed than the people that live in the area. And that's been upheld by all the courts, Miami-Dade versus Blumenthal, Sport Acres, Section 11. There's a number of cases. I think I was at 3 minutes, but I should have 5 minutes. Is that correct, or is my 5 minutes done?
Your 5 minutes is up, sir.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Was that 5 or 3? I'm sorry.
The clock is set to 5.
It is.
5 for me?
Yes.
Okay. And then on my, you'll have the rest of it on my memorandum.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in opposition of this application? Please step forward. As a reminder, there'll be 3 minutes for individuals to speak, and organizations with letters of authorization will have 5.
Madam Attorney, are we allowed to receive these things to be passed around?
Yes.
Okay.
Good morning. My name is Les Cook. I live at 6086 West Duneray Loop. I'm the closest residential property to the project. This hearing is really not about affordable housing. It's about a developer seeking to make a radical change to an existing master plan simply for profit motives. A master plan on 15 acres, 4 3-story buildings, up to we hear now 179 units, 35 to 40 foot concrete structures, 100,000 plus square foot of building, 300 to 400 people, cars, pets, all added in a short time. The area proposed is a community of private roads maintained by the residents of Meadowcrest. It is a stabilized growth area, predominantly a senior citizen community. It's stabilized because people buy homes, they leave, people move in. We see no population influx. We see no increased use of our infrastructure. There's no firm site plan or use decision on what type of complex is being proposed. The change being requested is without any major conditions. It's a blank check for the owner and the developer to work with county to develop some type of final plan. If this doesn't get funding, this is our last chance for input. It will open the door to any high density or other idea that comes down the pike. This is not a case of not in my backyard. This project is in our front yard. It's in the core of our quiet neighborhood, just a few hundred feet from our pool, overlooking our park and our amenities. If the massive project goes forward, this project will become the dominant feature within this community. We will be the neighborhood behind the apartments, and that will change the character and the aesthetics of this deed-restricted community. View matters. Aesthetics matter. This is deed-restricted place we're trying to market when we have to sell. That's why they call it curb appeal. Master plans for communities are designed to provide complementary land usage. This in no way complements or adds any services to this community. The other completed affordable housing projects in the county are a much smaller scale, 100 units to 119 units, 8 to 10 acres. Colonnade is 106 units on 8.63 acres, located by a city park that can easily handle the residents' recreational needs. There's no compelling reason to grant this change. It is a negative effect on the county. Previous applications that resulted in approval for multi-story apartments behind the Chronicle on industrial property in the back of the community, luxury condominiums sold to the community up on the perimeter, turned into apartments. They're right on 46 and they're up against the power line. So I just ask you today, do not depart from the master plan. Please vote no. Thank you.
Thank you. Please, if we could not have any applause or anything, that would be greatly appreciated. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition?
Yes, sir. Members of the board, thank you very much for allowing me the opportunity to speak before you today. My name is Stephen Shaner, and I live in Meadowcrest with my wife and little guy who turns 3 in August. I'm here in opposition to the location of this enormous development. It will have a catastrophic impact on the long-established community of Meadowcrest if it is allowed to proceed. I will not speak about issues technical in nature, as I'm certain others are able to do so more effectively than myself. What I would like to briefly touch upon is why we are here. As everyone is aware, the population of Florida is booming. The rate is unprecedented. Nobody will deny much work is needed to handle this growth. But why are so many coming here to our great state and to our beautiful nature coast? Certainly they come for the weather, maybe not the hurricanes or the humidity. They come for the endless amusements and attractions. They come for the best fishing in the world, best by far. I bet a few just come to see the crazy drivers on the highways. But there's another reason, maybe even more important than fishing. Many of us are here because of a promise. Understand we've come from places that are broken. We come from places where our voices, the voices of the people, are no longer heard. Those we placed in positions of trust, those we counted on to make decisions that affect our lives no longer heard us. Instead of listening to the people, we feel they listen to big business, big money, big government, and outside influences we didn't understand. So we left good jobs. We left family behind to come here to what some call the free state of Florida, because we believe that promise is still kept here. That promise is alive and well here. The voices of the people are heard and are considered and do matter. I stand before you this morning. I stand with my neighbors, none of whom are named Goliath. I stand in faith our voices will be heard, and I truly believe our voices will matter. I'm certain we can find a way to accommodate any need for new housing, while at the same time protecting our community. A community full of loyal citizens from all walks of life, who love their neighborhood and what they've worked so hard to build here. This is Citrus County. It's filled with good people and good leaders. Working together, we can become a model for growth. Smart growth. Let me finish as I began, by thanking the members of the board for allowing me the opportunity to be heard. Thank you, and God bless America.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition?
Good morning. Good morning,
Good
everyone.
morning.
These are our petitions. You'll get them later. My name's Barbara Carson. I live in Fox Hollow, which is part of Meadowcrest. My name is Barbara Carson. I live in Fox Hollow, which is in Meadowcrest. I am retired. I'm on a limited income as well. Get my glasses on. Okay. So as you look around the middle of Crystal River, you'll see that the Meadowcrest community is a model homeowner community that was Stan Olson's vision for this area over 30 years. It's made up of homeowner villages, low-density commercial land that blends in with our residential community, along with a quiet park and animal habitat with plenty of nature blended into our community. This, too, is the Nature Coast. The apparent issue of rezoning our area to include high-density apartments does not fit into the infrastructure of this community. Mr. Olson was very generous to our community, and his vision for this area did not include a 3-story high-density apartment. He wanted to create a park-like residential atmosphere where we could all enjoy safe and quiet amenities that we have had in the last 30 years. We all agree that affordable housing is needed in Crystal River, but this area is not feasible for that. There are many other areas in Crystal River that would benefit more. The developer just has not looked harder, as it seems it was too easy for him to put his mark on the name of Meadowcrest, along with amenities and the land use that we have maintained ourselves for over 30 years. The complete infrastructure of our community will be changed and damaged as approximately 160 additional people and cars will drive through this area daily. Our utilities cannot handle it, as well as our roads, which we maintain ourselves. With the extra traffic now occurring with the Suncoast Parkway and the cars using the thoroughfare of Meadowcrest Boulevard over to Highway 486, the safety and condition of our roads will be affected tremendously, and we can't depend on the city because they can't even take care of the streets we have. We have residents that walk the roads to and from our villages and parks. It is a safety issue, as several people have already been hurt along Meadowcrest Boulevard, and speeding is still a problem. I know, I live along Meadowcrest Boulevard. I see it every day. Needless to say, the pine forest and the other nature areas of our community will be compromised, which we have enjoyed and have taken care of for many years. We as residents take pride in our community, and as owners, we have worked very hard to keep it as a natural and safe habitat all these years. We are part of the Nature Coast. If you deny this change, I'm asking you to deny this change in zoning and concentrate on keeping our area the beautiful and natural setting that Mr. Olson had in his vision. Remember, this is the Nature Coast, and our area is a model to that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition?
Yes, sir.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kevin Kelly, and I live in Hillcrest Village in Meadowcrest. Thank you for your time and attention in this matter. My wife and I, Mary Ann, purchased a home in Pinehurst Village in 2010. Having lived in a homeowners association previously, we believe we knew what to look for. Specifically, covenants and conditions, bylaws, current fund balances, fund reserves, and the overall financial and structural condition of the Meadowcrest Community Association. We also looked into the zoning of the surrounding properties. We found Meadowcrest to be a complete package consisting of a board of directors composed of 5 residential representatives and 4 commercial entities. I have been told the original developer, Mr. Olson, constructed the board of directors specifically giving the residents a 1-vote majority in matters concerning Meadowcrest. We have a substantial investment in our home, and we have a right, as granted by Mr. Olson, to have a 1-vote majority. Satisfied we knew what we were buying into, we purchased our home. Fast forward 6 years, we purchased a larger home in Hillcrest. Marion and I have been active in the community. It's a community that we love, and all of the people behind me do as well. When the issue of high density was proposed for the tract of land owned by Gulf to Lake Associates on Meeting Tree, we were surprised to say the least, since our earlier research clearly indicated that the tract of land zoned was commercial and/or professional service suites and buildings. If the issue today were building stores, professional offices, or other commercial ventures other than a car wash, I probably would not be standing before you today, since that was the master plan and the designated zoning when we purchased our property. The question in my mind is simple. Why have a master plan and designated zoning if it cannot stand the test of time and/or challenge? If changes are permitted, how far afield would future changes take us from the original master plan? Would we even recognize Meadowcrest? The proposed housing development just doesn't fit our low-density community. I'm sure others will speak about the roads and other conditions. In summary, I respectfully request that you uphold the master plan, the current zoning, and Mr. Olson's beautiful vision that is Meadowcrest. I thank you sincerely.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Laquita Davis. I live at 6426 West Cannondale Drive. I am a homeowner and resident of Meadowcrest. I worked in social services most of my life with disabled individuals who relied on affordable housing to survive. I agree that more affordable housing is needed for people from all walks of life. That is not the issue here today. The issue is the placement of this complex appropriate for the location being proposed? I am a retiree on a fixed income, like many of my neighbors. My home is my most valuable asset. I fear if this project is approved, my home value will absolutely be adversely affected. I worked very hard to purchase my home. The potential of higher HOA fees to account for increased strain on our community's infrastructure, liabilities, responsibilities worries me. Green Mills LLC's proposal of a high-density apartment complex, whether it is 100 apartments or 220 apartments, hasn't been settled. Either way, it's a huge number. The developer's plan doesn't seem to allow for much green space. Therefore, we can expect that many people will absolutely spill over into our amenities. Our private park and tennis courts are all assets and a part of what we pay our HOA dues into. They have never had to be secured. Meadowcrest is a treasured community that is quiet, has relatively low traffic and low crime. I believe that those are the facts that we deserve to defend. The developer's proposal is not even remotely in keeping with the master plan that I bought into in Meadowcrest. For that reason, I am strongly opposed to high-density apartments being built in Meadowcrest. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition?
I'm Bill Farmer. I live at 6110 West Fairdale Court in the Fairmont Village. Been there for about 7 years. Retired from Indiana and love this area. No snow, no ice, just a wonderful area to live in. I enjoy walking and using the facilities around this area. They're always up to date. They're kept clean. It's just a great place to spend my my afternoons, my days, swimming, walking. And I've logged somewhere around 2,200 miles walking those paths. I think I know the streets and I know the sidewalks of this place very well. When we were looking for a place, I was riding with my sister and her husband, and we stopped by the clubhouse and encountered an individual that was walking. And I simply said, "Tell me a little bit about Meadowcrest." That's all I had to say. And the words began to flow. They love this place, and so do all the rest of them. And all the people back here can vouch for that too. It's a great place to live. But we want to talk a little bit about the apartments. I said I walk quite a bit. I've been around that property some 20 times just in the last few weeks looking at it. And I think I probably know it as well. I've probably been on it more than Oscar has. There's going to be a concentration of about a third as many people in that one small area as we have in all 5 villages of Meadowcrest. That's a lot of concentration, and it'll be in 4 buildings there. That's putting too many people together too close. I was always told that Meadowcrest was developed for the people, and the commercial area was designed to complement the people and take care of the needs of the people. When I see this apartment complex being proposed, I do not see any benefit for the people of Meadowcrest. So I think it fails completely there. One other thing, Oscar has talked yesterday and somewhat today about a buffer zone around this apartment complex. And he said that it would be within 20 feet of the edge, and we have lots of pine trees. Well, as I've walked around there, I stepped it off, and those pine trees are 38 to 40 feet from the edge of the property. They are not going to be left there and be a part of the buffer project.
Thank you very much for your comments, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition?
Who do I give this to? Sorry, I'm short. My name's Liz Haba. I live at 6058 West Duneray Loop, and I will go as quickly as possible because I know you're hearing some things. I like math. My math is this. The traffic could be dangerous. The gentleman, Mr. Bramblett, pointed that out. That could be a problem. I heard that no cars are going up because of conversion math, and I've seen conversion math getting pointed to over and over again because obviously saying that you're going to put 179 units, you're not going to have any cars, doesn't make any sense. So let's use common sense. 179 units, 2 cars in each unit, husband, wife, 358 cars. The applicant points out that the people who own this have been paying for this, right, all this time. Well, guess who else has been paying for it? All the people in this room. The Stan Olson master plan in that area had it broke up into thirds. 1/3 of one type of retail, 1/3 into another, 1/3 into housing. So let's play that math. That's 179 units divided by 3 is 60. He put it up to 3 stories, but the Stan Olson only had those as single-story townhomes. Drop that down, you got 20 townhomes. Stan Olson forgot to put a height on the limit, so your team accurately pointed out they can build up to the sky as high as they want to do. That doesn't mean they should be allowed to do it because, quite frankly, guys and ladies, that's the reason you're here, is when people forget to do stuff like that, you're supposed to be here protecting us in our community. The applicant says with generosity, I started at 2-something, I came down to 179. There's no generosity in that. Guys, that's the maximum amount, as I heard, something times 12 units per acre. The applicant says it's generally compatible of what they want to do. You know what? Everybody in here, you guys approve variances on a daily basis. That would be like saying because you have one variance, you now have a new standard that you're going to apply to everybody. This is crazy talk. The home values are going to go up because they're going to build here. Well, guess what, guys? The home values in Florida have been going through the roof. I'm sorry, but that's another one of those points. There's no cause and effect. What I find interesting is the applicant is sitting here saying, I use Zillow. Look at page 118 of the applicant's bundle. The Zillow price on that one was $428. It actually sold at $317. So your applicant here is disingenuous. You got an out-of-town developer. I'm sorry, Mr. Greed Mills. He's an applicant he's a wolf in sheep's clothing, and we're looking to you guys to not feed us to this wolf or an out-of-town developer. We're not saying there shouldn't be development. Development is natural. Stan Olson master plan allowed that. But the problem is, guys, your job is here to protect us. And yes, I know sometimes we look like noisy neighbors, but the truth of the matter is, we are going to have to live with the decisions that you make. We're dependent on you. That's why you're on this job. And we are asking you, please help us, protect us, because this is not what it looks like when this very nice person stands up and makes all these nice comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to?
Good morning. My name is Arbeth Bumgarner. I'm a realtor here in Citrus County, and I've lived here, my wife, for almost 20 years now. How can I see this affecting the real estate industry tremendously? If a client comes to me and asks me, can something be built in this neighborhood? I do my due diligence, my research, and then I find out that ultimately I show them what's going on. This is what can and can't be built in that neighborhood, and then all of a sudden, a year later or 6 months later, here we are in this situation right here. We all know we need affordable housing in Citrus County. I've been a strong advocate for that for years, okay? So that's a given. But the reality is to how do we as a real estate company, as a realtor, honestly look at people face to face and say, look, this is what can be built, and in 6 months something like this can happen, or a year. Where does that put our industry and our integrity as a realtor and a real estate company? Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition?
Good morning. My name is Deborah Cleary. I live at 1380 North Hunterston Point in Meadowcrest. The two speakers previous kind of took a couple of my lines, so forgive me if I get redundant, but we're here today to address an out-of-town developer's enormous proposal that will permanently and adversely affect one of the most well-established communities in Citrus County, Meadowcrest. It's a place that I call home. The developer's charts and graphics attempt to whisk away fears of any negative impacts on property values. As a licensed real estate agent in the area for 14 years, I'm qualified to address the distortion of those facts. Green Mill's previous projects at Forest Ridge and Colonnade Apartments, which serve as a source of their statistics, were both built within areas of the county with high saturations of rental properties. The surrounding real estate in the immediate vicinities of these complexes were older areas with lower property values and higher levels of disrepair. These apartment complexes were rightfully viewed as assets to the area that they were constructed in because they were new, updated, and they fit within the existing rental unit structure. We're all aware that most of Florida, as well as the entire county, has seen a steady increase in the housing market in the last several years. The entirety of Citrus County experienced a substantial jump in sales prices within the time frame of the completion of both of these facilities. For perspective, a typical Beverly Hills home selling for $50,000 in 2014 is selling today for about $158,000. This price jump is similar in Inverness. The increased property values the developer cited from Zillow are not due to his development, but in fact the result of the unprecedented skyrocketing property values. The long-term negative effects of large amounts of rental properties within a predominantly resident-owned area are, however, very much a reality. Older sections of Beverly Hills are a model example of this. The decline begins gradually, but bringing down overall property values is an eventuality. It has been my experience, most tenants do not share the same notion of preserving and protecting rental property and grounds to the extent property owners do. We understand that our grassroots opposition to this proposal has caused an unintended nuisance to the developer. How could anyone think it's ridiculous, though, that homeowners within a deed-restricted community would reject a proposal that would completely change the aesthetics of their neighborhood, their day-to-day lifestyle, and their property values? We've come here today to express our voice about our way of life, our concern for the largest investment most of us hold dear. Wouldn't you feel and do the same if it affected you? I respectfully point out that for the developer, this is just another project, but for the residents I stand with,
Thank
this
you
is
very
our
much.
home.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition?
Good morning. My name is Teresa Holland, and I live at 6246 West Lexington Drive in the Pinehurst Village. Thank you for the opportunity to express a few of my concerns as to why I am strongly opposed to the proposal by Green Mills LLC, and I am in strong support of protecting and maintaining the integrity of the resident-owned Meadowcrest Village from high-density rezoning. I understand that you have a huge responsibility, and I thank you for your time and research to pursue balance and function within the structure of our communities and our county. You are our protector and our gatekeeper. You represent all citizens within this county. It is crucial that when striving to meet county housing needs, that they are not achieved at the detriment of others. The original master plan of Meadowcrest created a tranquil and balanced community that was affordable. It provided for well-planned balance of small to medium commercial providers like medical and professional offices, and a nice variety of residential villages. I believe that deviating from that plan would be highly detrimental to both the residential homeowners and the commercial business owners. Similar to trying to put a square peg in a round hole, neither fitting nor productive. Many of us are on limited incomes and we cannot afford to live in higher priced communities, but we can afford to experience the tranquility that we have found in Meadowcrest. However tranquil and all that it represents will be permanently and irreversibly altered if the proposed rezoning for this mammoth high-density apartment complex is approved. High-density flow of traffic will likely increase with the expanding of the Beverly Hills Crossing and neighboring outlets going in at the intersection of 491 and 486. Citrus County natives will increasingly cut through our community on Meadowcrest Boulevard, which we have come to expect, even though the road maintenance financial tab remains with the Meadowcrest Community Association and members. Now instantly add an additional 300 cars that will be commuting to and from their daily routes throughout our community and main arteries, and I fear we will see huge traffic backups every day. We are not only fighting to protect the infrastructure, green space, permanent and migratory wildlife, and our tranquil ambience of Meadowcrest for ourselves, ladies and gentlemen, but we are fighting to preserve this gem for everyone. Again, I remind you that you are the protectors and the gatekeepers for the ultimate direction of this county. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition?
Sir.
Excuse me.
Notice?
Excuse me, please present your comments to us
Sir.
and not the applicant,
Okay.
sir.
He
Thank
noticed, he came up here and
Excuse me,
asked.
could you state your name also,
Okay,
please?
my name is Van Baser. I live at 1563 North Foxborough Loop in Meadowcrest. He came up here and you asked for people that were in favor of this. Not one. In 100 and some people in this room, not one spoke in favor of it. But you've got a lot of people here who aren't going to speak today who are against it. Now, you're from Fort Lauderdale.
I went there when I was 15, 1955, before you were born. It was a medium-sized town. Now it's a huge city. That's why my parents moved in from Fort Lauderdale to here, to get to a quiet, small area with not concentrated housing. You're in it to make money. I'm not interested in him making money at my expense or expense of other people. I also say this, if you go on 486, Norfolk Bryant Highway from LKQ all the way to Walmart, there are acres and acres and acres of land. Why not build that there? Why try to cram this all into a little area? It doesn't make sense. And I would encourage you people to vote no and preserve what we have here and not destroy it for his company to make money. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition?
Testing, yep. Okay, I think it's still morning, and good morning. And my name's Trish Nicholas, Patricia. Last name spelled Nicholas, no relation to the saint. 25 years ago, my husband and I moved from the Chicago suburbs to Citrus County. What drew us to this area were the rolling hills, the natural forests, minimal congestion, and the small town feel. We built a home in Citrus Hills, and after 20 years decided to downsize to something smaller, a place with less groundwork, yet some providing amenities that we like to do, swimming, etc. And Meadowcrest was the obvious solution. The individual villages of Meadowcrest, each with their own charm, are well maintained and overseen by the Meadowcrest Community Association. The association is committed to maintaining a quality environment, protecting the rights of users, and sustaining the integrity of the clubhouse and the pool complex. Their job is also to ensure the villages complement each other and remain consistent and welcome to owners and visitors. It is no surprise that in the past 3 years, homes for sale in Meadowcrest were sold before the signage could reach the front lawn, and that continues today. Meadowcrest is a desirable community as designed. Why is that? Unlike most subdivisions, the property owners pay a monthly fee to support the continuity between the villages, which includes roads, sewers, maintenance, or common areas such as parks and trails, gardens, and other amenities. In essence, homeowners not only care for their home, they care for the entire development. We moved here because we want consistency and rules for homes relative to exterior look, color, lighting, etc. So how would the Green Mills proposal fit into Meadowcrest development? And actually, I don't see how it does. It's my understanding roads are currently supported financially by residents at Meadowcrest, and that the roads were not intended as bypasses and shortcuts, as they are used now. With the new businesses being built at 486 and 491, we expect traffic will increase on our roads. And to purposefully add another 170 more residents to those same roads will only deteriorate the roads just that much faster. And were they made for that? And what is the maximum number of people in a unit? I found on a website that there was something about a maximum of 8 in a unit on the colonnade group. So we really need to look at what is the maximum number of that. Over the years, the parcel of land has now become a natural wooded area in Meadowcrest. They provide a home to wild animals. Why wouldn't land on 486 or 491 that is barren and already offered for sale being considered? Why a parcel in the midst of Meadowcrest? Can we really afford to destroy hundreds of trees and replace it all with expensive concrete? With the speed with this change is being pushed, we ask you just to take your time.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition?
Sorry.
Hi, my name is Art Haverty. I live at 1507 North Endicott Point, part of the Fairmont section of Meadowcrest. Now, your planning people have called that a high-density area. That high-density area in my case, includes me, my wife, and my next-door neighbor on about a third of an acre. Not 300 people and 300 parking lots in 8 acres that they're talking about. I don't see any reason why we need to tear down all those trees for residential housing. We already have a section in Meadowcrest that contains professional offices. 2 of my doctors are over there. That section is completely filled at this point, and it's highly likely that we could have more professional offices in the area that they're talking about. I'd prefer the trees myself, but professional offices would be acceptable, not this paving of paradise to put a 300-car parking lot. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition?
Hi, my name's Bridget Brothers. I've been a homeowner in Meadowcrest for over 20 years. I'm a currently recently retired school teacher for Citrus County Schools, and I would rather be talking to 500 students than to be here today. So during my tenure and my retirement, I've worked with struggling students and parents. I've delivered Meals on Wheels. I've worked as a volunteer in our county nursing homes. I am very sympathetic to the housing needs of this county and especially Crystal River. I know the needs of our community, and a lot of times those needs have been addressed through county services that I've requested and school services. I've never been denied anything, whether it was a need for a microwave for parents, a backpack, or food. I'm very appreciative of what this county does and what our school system does. I'm here to say that Meadowcrest is not an affluent community. I deliver Meals on Wheels to some of our residents currently. Most of us are on fixed incomes, and we take care of each other. We are aware we currently share some of our amenities with the public and business owners in Meadowcrest, including the beautiful prom pictures and the wedding pictures that are taken in our park, public walking, fishing, pickleball, basketball, and a lot of times just community workers that come in on their lunch break and sit at our park and enjoy that. I embrace those people, and a lot of us embrace those people. There's never been a problem in the 20 years I've been there sharing with our community. My biggest concerns with this housing project are flooding, excess traffic to the roads we maintain, which we've talked about, and the loss of our serene development. The continued building in the medical park has resulted in the desecration of trees and the green space, and it has created excess stormwater runoff. Currently, water stands on Meadowcrest Boulevard. Can you imagine when we go and pave and concrete over 14 more acres, where is the water going? The DRAs around the government building in the summer times, as some of you witness, are already full. I just don't know where the water is going to go. I do not know for sure, but I believe that the floodplain has been extended to Rock Crusher Road. So I don't understand where the water is going to go. What will our elderly do when the increased traffic force them off all the walking paths and the roads? And our roads deteriorate before our budget allows that maintenance. I know Crystal River has sufficient and available land, and I implore you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Hopefully I'm the last speaker and you can take a break after that. So, well, first of all, good morning. It's still morning. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Sylvain Robitaille. I'm an attorney. living in Meadowcrest, I've lived there for 16 years. I've been in Citrus County for 34 years. I've seen a lot of different things over those years. And first of all, I would thank you for giving all of us the opportunity to express ourselves and bring issues with the application that you have before you. I hate to say it, but we could have brought about 150 people to speak up front here this morning. We tried to limit it to a small representative samples of our residents because you have other things to do besides listening to us, okay? Now, there's a couple of things that I have to cover based on what has happened with the previous speaker and the presentation from the applicant. The applicant talked about his 3-story apartment complexes in Citrus County that he's built, Forest Ridge and the Colonnades. Well, Forest Ridge is sandwiched between a school and a shopping center. That's fine, not an issue. Colonnade is behind racetrack around other rental communities. That's fine. We need low-income housing. We need it, okay? And I've spoken with him personally yesterday, and I did express that to him. We need those. And everybody back there agrees. We need those. However, in this case, you're applying in a deed-restricted community, 45 years old, that we all bought into because we knew that it was all going to be owner-occupied. It was created for that. We're all paying fees, including the businesses. And it's set up that way. We expect that. Now, all of a sudden you have one owner because we're not set up for rental units. There's one owner. So I'm paying X a month as a property owner. Well, as a property owner, he's going to pay X a month, same amount I pay. However, he's going to have 500 people living there. That's an issue. Why is it not covered? Because it wasn't planned to be that way. Now, he spoke about Summerhill, the owner-occupied condominium on the back of the property on 486. Those were originally approved with a lot of funding from those people, but it was approved as owner-occupied condominiums. Then you can bill each homeowner to take care of it. Please.
Thank you very much for your comments, sir.
Please deny the application.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? I know we have the live feed upstairs, and does anyone in the upper floor wish to make any comments? We'll give you a second to come down.
We actually went up there a little while ago, and there wasn't anyone that's come down, so.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Seeing none, we'll close the public portion of this meeting. At this time, I'd like to give the applicant an opportunity to make any rebuttal comments that he may wish regarding the comments that were made.
Just a couple of things that I want to address. First, Forest Ridge, if you look on Google Earth, is 350 feet. The property is 350 feet from a single-family home. That's about the same distance. I think Mr. Les Cook might be the closest house, and I think his house might be about the same distance. It's directly across. Forest Ridge is directly across the street from a single-family subdivision, and it's across Forest Ridge Boulevard. Very similar condition. You also have Citrus Hills community that's on the other side of 46. There's also homes there within a similar distance to Meadowcrest. So you look at that as an example. It was brought up the maximum number of people. There's going to be 8 people in an apartment. That's not true. We're limited to 2 people per bedroom. So on a 1-bedroom, you can have 2 people. 2-bedroom, you can have maximum of 4 people. Those are guidelines from the Florida Housing Finance Corporation. It can't have more than 2 people per bedroom. There was a question about flooding. Flooding is something that whenever you go apply for building permits, the Water Management District is going to take a very close look at that. We have to, retain our own water. Our preliminary site plan has plenty of space for us to have a retention pond, and we'll have to, of course, like meet the drainage calculations and everything else. That comes later. That comes as part of the process for the water management district. But we have to retain our own water. That'll all be engineered as part of that permitting process. It was sort of suggested that look somewhere else. Let's try to find somewhere else to do it. There's all we are looking. We have looked. There's not a lot of land in Citrus County that is zoned.
Please, please, please.
You have plenty of land. It's just unfortunately not very much land that's zoned for multifamily apartments that are large enough for this type of development where you can get the economy of scale and build affordable, attainable housing. There's just not a lot of them available. And also, if you keep pushing out to these sort of rural areas, that goes against every principle of smart planning, frankly. The whole idea of smart planning is to put residential housing where there's already infrastructure in place. That's one of the things that's attractive about this property. It's one of the few properties that has all this infrastructure in place that has already been designed for this kind of impact, and we're just converting one use to another. I guess regarding the property values, I mean, I think I've already said what I need to say about that. Again, I'm not taking credit for what's happened. Those are a lot of national trends. I'm simply pointing out the fact that if you're going to argue that the property values are going to go down, and when you look at the examples, they've actually gone up, I haven't seen any evidence or statistics that show property values go down when you build rental apartments near home. I just haven't seen it. I think that was all the concerns that I wanted to address. I mean, I'm happy to answer any questions that you all have. And I said earlier, I'm happy to have a discussion about what you all might feel is an appropriate number of units. Your professional planning staff has already concluded that the request is consistent with the comprehensive plan. They've made that finding in their report to you, their professional planners. And so I'd like to hear from you all, I guess, at this point, to see kind of what your thoughts are, and let's let any other questions you all have.
All right. Thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it. At this time, we're going to bring it back to the board for discussion and possible action on the application. I'm sorry, sir, the public hearing has been closed.
I understand that.
I'm sorry, sir, the hearing has already been closed. Thank you. Okay, with that, do we have any comments from our board? Excuse me, if we keep it quiet in the audience, please. Any comments? Questions? Yes, Ms. Worthington, you look like you're biting at the bullet.
Commissioner, I'll start then.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Burns. Mr. Barr, I'm sorry.
We've heard an overwhelming amount of evidence presented from both the county, the planners, and from the residents. But one thing that I have not heard all morning is, what about the other county residents who's needing affordable housing? How do they feel? I'm sure that most of us, me included, has got a family member sleeping on the couch or in a room because they work a full-time job and cannot afford an apartment. We don't have affordable housing in Citrus County. The second thing I want to mention is, what about the seller? Nobody's mentioned the seller of this property who's been paying property taxes for 30 years. I'm sure there's enough people in this audience and in that Meadowcrest, if they were interested in those trees as much as I've heard about today, they might have bought that property, and we wouldn't be here today discussing that. Just something I'd like to point out there. I've heard, from what I understand from the planners, Meadowcrest Road is a county-funded road. I might be mistaken. Is that correct? The county pays for that? Our county taxpayers pays for that? No? Okay. Is there... Okay, I'll scratch that. That was just a question. But I'll stop there and let somebody else take over. I have several other things I want to mention, but we'll wait a minute.
Commissioner Worthington?
Yeah, okay. I would just like to say that I've heard all of you and I read all of your public comments and letters that you sent in. Our charge, the charge of this board, is to follow the comprehensive plan and the land development code. This application is not for rezoning. That was something that came up a lot. What we're talking about is a conversion from commercial to multifamily, and that's high density to high density. This is not an application asking for a conversion or an upzone from a low density or medium density to high density. And I'd just like to say I also agree with every single person in this room. As a business owner and as someone who's been a resident of Citrus County for a long time, we do need workforce housing. When I think about this, I think about the people who work for us. I think about the people who work at your doctor's offices. I think about the people who are your police officers, your teachers. There are very limited opportunities for people to live in this county right now. And when I think about what is the best place for workforce housing, in my opinion, it is in commercial zoning, where the planning is appropriate, where you would have walkable communities and opportunities for these people to access shopping and other things. So that's what I'm thinking when I look at this application today.
Thank you. Any other commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Scraggs? Yes, please.
With a background both as a real estate broker and past vice president for an 1,800 property owners association, I find this project not compatible, and I would have a very difficult time agreeing to it.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I guess I would have to disagree with the summary of findings that the request would not adversely affect the public interest. Obviously, it's going to adversely affect the public interest of the public that's here today. Okay, and is generally compatible with adjacent properties. It's not compatible with adjacent properties as the PUD is constructed. These people have bought into the conditions of the PUD, and they've accepted them, and they have paid their money, and they live there. They shouldn't have to be continually re-justifying the conditions of the PUD to outside interests that come in to may wish to change it just because they wish to change it for their own personal interests. Okay? So, you know, the whole idea of discussing affordable housing, I think, is a red herring in this whole discussion. You know, we're not here to discuss public housing. We're just here to discuss the conversion of various elements of this PUD from one classification to the other. Okay? Yes, the county may need affordable housing, but it doesn't need to be done on the backs of these people's property. Okay?
Yep.
So am not in agreement with this conversion. I see no reason to make a change from it. I think if you buy into a PUD, you should have a reasonable expectation of, you know, you accepted the conditions of that, and you should have a reasonable expectation that the development within that PUD will follow what you have bought into, not to be changed arbitrarily by outside interests whenever it may be convenient to do so. So I will be voting against this.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I tend to agree with Commissioner Stone. I think these people made an investment, the largest investment of their lives is your home for most people. And I think that they signed on for what was there. It was commercial, and they understood that. And it might even be a car wash, but it's commercial. And that commercial would have, that commercial entity would have 8 employees coming in and out and some customers. I can't agree with this proposal because I think it's just too much of an impact on the perimeter of this community, and it'll be an impact on traffic going through from 486 to 44. So I won't support this.
Thank you. Commissioner Bramblett.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I've heard everyone. I have to be completely honest that I did not read every single one of these. Please forgive me. I do actually work a real job. and I've read the rest of the other packet as well. If I was getting paid to read these, I would read them. But I did hear all of you. Most of them said the same thing. There was one in there that was actually in favor. I, like my colleagues who have spoke last, I do not think that this development is compatible with this particular area. My father was one of the very beginning contractors, framers, construction companies, if you will, that was in Meadowcrest. I spent a lot of time in Meadowcrest, climbing through the trusses of the very homes that you guys live in. The Meadowcrest Boulevard cut through, I'm here to tell everybody, I drive that road all the time. It's not faster to cut through Meadowcrest, just so you know. I go the fastest route everywhere. Everything that I do is all about trying to get there quickest. I try and beat my Google Maps direction when it tells me how long it's going to take me to get anywhere I go. My goal in life is to make it there faster than Google's going to tell me it is to get there. Regarding the industrial property conversion that with the other that backed up to Pinehurst, so I voted in favor of that particular application, and the reason that I did was because I believed that what they intended to put there was more compatible than the industrial use that could have been was originally planned for. I believe that that was a very good vision by Mr. Olson, but I don't think in today's community and today's society and the way that that particular area has developed, that industrial zoning really fit for that unit. That's why I voted in favor of it. I tried to let the people that were there, that were here much less, by the way. I don't know where you guys were when all of that was happening, but there was very few people here. The ones that were very adamant, and I tried to help them understand that you can have these houses that may be a little bit more dense than what you are currently living in, or you could have an industrial use behind your house because it's already permitted. I just wanted to make sure that they understood that. I'm not voting because there's 150 of you in this room that say that you're against it. I just want you to know that. But I'm voting against this because I believe it in my head. The way that I see as a real estate agent, as a real estate broker, as somebody that's lived here for more than 40 years in Citrus County, when I drive by that road every single day, which I do 5 and 6 times a day, I just don't think apartment rental properties is what is in the best interest of that particular location. Some of the stuff that's said, those of you that think that you don't live in a high density community, I'm here to tell you, you live in a high density community already. You just don't live in a high-density rental community, okay? So even if your property's zone LDR and your house is only one with the other third of an acre, Mr. Cook, no disrespect, I know who you are very well. Nice to see you. This is a high-density development. There's no other definition than high density. So when you guys go and see the county commission...
Excuse me, sir.
When you guys go see the county commission and say that I don't live in a high density community, I just want you to know that I believe that you're incorrect. This is high density. Look at the map. Some of the other stuff, like the trees, and I heard people say that this is a forest. This is clearly not a forest. This is not a forest, guys. It's there. You guys are enjoying it right now. The only reason there are trees there planted in a row is because it made the taxes cheaper for the owner of the property. So do yourself a favor and realize that one day that this forest is really going to be gone, and what actually does end up happening there, which may be allowable already, that nobody has to even come in front of this board, you may not be as happy with what ends up there. So you can have the opportunity to control what's there at a meeting like this, and you've clearly said you don't, or you can have something that shows up there that you have no control over. And I hope that that's not what happens to you guys. But that, at the end of the time, that's not why I'm voting against it. I'm just voting against it clearly because this is a residential community, a high-density residential community with some small commercial components that I do not believe that a high-density rental community fits within. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Bramblett. Looking at all of the information that was presented to us and listening to everyone's comments, the applicant's presentation, I don't feel that the applicant presented sufficient data for me to agree with what's going on. Part of that, I go back to the traffic volumes, a comparison between the current possible all-day volumes and the AM, PM peak hours, which are very critical for what the impact would be at the intersections, was not presented. You did not give me any real good feeling for what the impervious surface ratio would be, what the floor area ratio would be. So I found those to be somewhat lacking. Also, I read the Chronicle, and I've noticed that one of the comments says that it was a possibility that the number of units could be capped at 100. You never made us any offer today as to what you would be willing to do, so I just don't feel comfortable with what you've stated as to your goal. And I don't want to adversely impact these residents. However, as Commissioner Bramblett said, you must remember that if this property remains as is, and to follow up with our planning commission, or our planners said, we could have a multi-story building which is in excess of the 3 stories. They would have to meet their setback requirements. However, you could end up with a 4-story, a 5-story, a 6-story building there that might be professional, but that could be in your backyard also. So as long as everybody recognizes that that's the devil that you might be facing should this board deny this application today. So with that, any other comments from any other commissioners? Commissioner Barnes, I noticed you had said that was all you had to say at the moment. Would you like to add anything further?
Well, the other things I just wanted to add, Commissioner Bramblett pretty much spelled out everything that I was wanting to say. I did kind of lose my mind there for a second on what I wanted to say, but I am in agreement that Citrus County needs affordable housing. I never have said until now that I do not agree with affordable housing in Meadowcrest. I don't think that that's the right location for it. I agree with some that said that there are other areas in the county that needs it. Since I retired, I've been working with developers. There are land out there for multi-housing. You just got to go find it. So with that, I'm not in favor with the way the applicant presented it. Like a third of the information was provided to us, 2/3 is left in the dark, and I don't like voting in the dark. So I would deny this application.
Thank you. Any other last comments from the commissioners?
Well, I agree with what everyone has said here. The only thing I would like to add, though, is that, and I appreciate your comments, but you did mention that the applicant didn't offer us anything as far as the 100, but he did several times stand at the podium and say that he would be willing to make concessions with this board.
You're absolutely correct, but I believe that if that's how he felt, I believe he should have brought that forward to us during his presentation that would have said, instead of having 179 units, I will reduce it to 100. I'm just picking a number, please. I'm just picking a number of 136. And I think if that was brought forward, we all may have felt slightly different. But I think it was his responsibility to bring us the number. It's not our responsibility to tell him what he should be doing. And with that, I notice our county attorney has been violently waving her finger at me.
I was trying not to make faces. I just wanted to remind everyone, regardless of what you may have heard or read outside of the hearing, your decision today needs to be based upon the evidence and testimony that's been presented to you today. Only what's been presented to you today. So make sure in your deliberations that you stick with that. And then also, just for the folks that are here, we have a very large group here. Just remember that whatever the decision of this board today, whether it's approval or denial, that's just merely a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners. So this decision that you make today isn't final. Sometimes when we're talking, we say, I would deny, I would,
Right.
whichever way. I just want to make sure everybody knows that this is the first stop and it still has to go before the board.
Thank you very much. I would just like to clarify that what was stated in the paper is not influencing my view on where this goes. However, as the applicant had said, he was asking us for some type of comment. It's not our responsibility to limit or to suggest what the number of units should be. So what was stated through him in the papers is not going to be impacting my decision whatsoever. I just wanted to clarify that. And with that, do we have a motion whether to accept or to deny this application?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
the Planning and Development Commission finds application number PUD-22-03 inconsistent with the Citrus County Comprehensive Plan and the Citrus County Land Development Code, and for that, this board recommends denial of the application to the Board of County Commissioners based upon the evidence and the testimony presented and the staff report and the conclusions regarding this petition.
Do I have a second?
I second that.
We have a first from Commissioner Roy and a second from Commissioner Barnes. All in favor of the recommendation, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. The application is denied. And just one last reminder, please. Excuse me, excuse me. Just as a reminder, as our county attorney stated, we make the recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners. They make the final decision. And with that, Ms. Couture, do we have a date for this meeting?
Right, they all have received notice if you're a homeowner, July 26th at 5:01 PM in the Commission Chambers in Inverness.
And tell them to please take our conversation out of
And
the
just so
room.
you know, every
We
public
have
input
another-
that you sent in, you don't need to do
Okay.
again. We will forward that to the Board of County Commissioners, okay? You don't need to send the same thing again. We've got it, and they'll get it, okay?
Also, if you wish to have any further conversations regarding this, please, out in the hallway, we have one more application to go over. Thank you very much.
May we be excused to get to the room?
Yes, you are.
Please leave quietly.
Come on, guys, we have a meeting. Let's go. Yes, I am. Let's go.
The only reason I did that is I totally disagree with all of you.
Ms. McKenzie?
He's talking to you.
Cheers.
I see you were holding a drink. No, I just want to know where are the drinks for the rest of us?
Our coordinator's ready whenever you are, sir.
All right.
Sorry. It's fine.
Please.
Okay. The applicant is requesting a single-family dwelling having a 21-foot setback to the mean high water line and a 20-foot setback to the edge of West Coquina Court. This is an aerial view of the subject property. This is a view of the subject property from West Coquina Court. This is looking east on West Coquina Court. Looking at the adjacent property to the north. Looking at the adjacent property to the south. Looking west on Dixie Bay. And this is the site plan as submitted by the applicant. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good morning. First of all, I'd like to apologize for not being here earlier. I've had several waterfront variances that we've had to, we've pulled, or we continued them and we pulled. Thanks to the ordinances being changed May 24th, my client no longer needs the variance for the waterfront setback part of this. It falls underneath the criteria with locating the closest neighbors, that they no longer need that for the waterfront setback. So today we're only asking for the 5-foot front setback, and we do feel the hardship is because of the cul-de-sac and how deep the property is, which he didn't create the size and shape of the property or the cul-de-sac curving into the property. we are still requesting a 5-foot variance to be a little closer to the front. Thank you.
That's it?
Well, we've been here long. That's summary. That's summary.
Any comments from staff?
No, thank you.
Any comments from the commission? Thank you very much.
Right, thank you.
Just
Morning.
Morning, Joe.
Joe Hockdale, Principal Planner. As Ms. McKenzie stated, this variance request originally was for both waterfront setback and right-of-way setback. This is one you've heard previously. It was continued. They made some adjustments to the porch in the back and then resubmitted. So here you can see the subject property off of Coquina Court. They are at the end of a cul-de-sac. This is a view of the subject property from the cul-de-sac. And this is looking from the back of the property towards the front. They do have a riprap seawall there right now. And this is what they were requesting. As Ms. McKenzie stated, this originally had the 20-foot, 21-foot, oh, excuse me, this was the previous submittal, not the current one. This showed what they were asking for the last time they were here. And this is the new one. So they are requesting a 20-foot edge of right-of-way setback. Originally, they were requesting a waterfront as well. Due to the waterfront setback ordinance that just went through, they actually don't need the waterfront setback anymore. The average waterfront setback for this property is 19 feet, with the two adjacent properties being 16 and 18 feet. And so the 21 feet that they were requesting is actually within the allowable now. So they are proposing a 2,779 square foot single family dwelling. The average setback, the average footprint in the area is about 1,500 square feet. And the front average setback from the right of way is actually 27 feet. So their front average in this regards doesn't help them. So they do need the variance for the 20-foot setback from the right of way. So originally they had a 1,328 square foot building envelope. That has changed slightly now because there is no 50-foot setback from the mean high water in the coastal A zone. And with their 19-foot setback, we didn't have time to go back and redo the available building envelope. But I can tell you that on the waterfront side, they don't need the variance anymore. However, because they are closer to the roadway and the average roadway setback is 27 feet, staff finds that this is not a minimum request and not all the findings are positive. We did have, I think, 1 or 2 public input regarding this as well.
Thank you. Any questions for Joe? Yes, Commissioner Bramblett.
Do you know which numbers of the proposed findings of fact would change with the current non-waterfront variance or the waterfront variance being removed? Because I have 3, 5, 6, and 8 as faults.
Yes, and I can tell you we didn't get a chance to update the report based on the timing of when that ordinance was approved and when the quasi was. So that's not reflected in here.
So we can sort of just go through it then. We would still say a granting of the variance requested will confer on the applicant any special privilege that is denied by this code to other lands, building, or structures in the same district?
Yes,
that one would stay.
Yes.
You just said it's not the minimum request. That one would stay. Granting of the variance will not be in harmony with the general intent and purpose of this code and will be injurious to the area. That one would stay.
Yes, for the right-of-way setback, but no longer the waterfront.
Granting of the variance will deviate from the clear intent of the adopted comprehensive plan. Policy 17.4, 17.9.1.
Because of the right-of-way setbacks, yes, but they are going to have to do engineered stormwater as part of this now. It was mandated before, but it's going to be mandated again now.
Correct.
And so they're going to have to meet all FEMA flood zone requirements. Even though it's still in a coastal A zone, we don't have that increased setback.
So let's just visualize, because when these building envelopes, when you guys create these, are very, very helpful. And we don't have that in this opportunity. So that is the site plan that is currently submitted, and that what we're looking at on the back there from the closest point of the water on the inside of the water of the seawall, are we dealing with here, or are we dealing with the mean high water line?
It would be the inside. Actually, I think they have top of bank, which would be mean high water line.
Okay. And then we're dealing with, at the closest point to the back of whatever those brown spots are, those are the decks, and the
Yes,
red
sir.
is the house. That's 35 feet.
21 feet.
21 feet?
Yes.
It doesn't work, but.
It's 21 feet. The
I'm talking about the current, we just said they don't need a setback on the waterfront now because it's 35 feet.
Well, they don't have the 50-foot requirement in a coastal A zone anymore, but based on the 6 average, the new waterfront average setbacks,
Okay.
their average waterfront that they're allowed is 19 feet.
Right.
And the two neighbors are 16 and 18, so they're not going to be any closer than the two neighbors on either side, and they're
Okay.
meeting that average.
Okay, all right, that makes sense.
So Joe, does that mean that they can move 2 feet closer to the water?
Technically, yes.
Okay.
So it could be a 22 instead of a 20 request?
That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah. If you can go back to that building envelope real quick, see the tiny little red in the front?
Yes.
That is the only part you're considering right now.
Right.
And so,
Which is a 5 foot, that's what I'm trying to do that math in my head. Is that 5 foot that we're dealing with right there? But in reality, this home can be moved back 2 feet, so we're only dealing with a 3 foot?
yeah, that's on that
Correct.
site plan, yeah.
I mean, their request was for 20, but because of that waterfront change, they can go back to 19,
Right.
which is currently 21. So they could push it back another 2 feet, which would make it a 22-foot setback instead of 25, so it's a 3-foot difference.
And then the average in the area is 26.
27, yes.
27. And it's the average of the, tell me what the average is again, the 3 closest?
6.
The 6 closest.
Yep.
So do we have an aerial view of this particular location right here? Because I want to see that cul-de-sac. Those are all houses on the end right there, right? So let
Yes.
me see, 6 properties, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 2 of those properties aren't going to be affected by the cul-de-sac. The other 2, actually, the other 3 are, right?
Yes.
So the cul-de-sac, okay, because we've seen these in the past with the cul-de-sac, and the cul-de-sac is definitely a hardship that isn't created by the applicant. It's just created because that's what it is. So in my opinion, I'm just saying, I'm just speaking out loud because I'm really tired and I'm ready to go home, but we're going to give everybody their due, so I'm just talking now. Like, if we could tell Miss McKenzie that if he moved his house back 2 feet and then it was a 3 foot, a variance that we're dealing with, I would be much more in favor and would be ready just to say rock it if the rest of the commissioners would. I'm trying to do the math in my head. We're still in that little space between where the approval was in May and we're dealing with these variances that kind of slip through the cracks, and we don't have all the data in front of us, and it was hard for me to do all that, so thank you.
I think Mr. Bramlett's proposal for a compromise like that would be an easy thing to do.
Right. So I do have some conditions prepared if you'd like to hear them.
Before you give those, Joe, I would like to finish our conversation. You'll be more than happy to hear your recommendations. Yes, Ms.
I was just going to say, I think we should, I know you're tired and everything, but we should proceed with our.
I wasn't trying to rush the meeting.
You know, that we have public comment here and things like that, so I just say, like.
I
let
know
him
there's
finish
procedure. I was just
his-
talking
yeah.
about what I was saying. Don't get what I was saying wrong. please.
So you don't have
I
a
wasn't
comment
saying
at
let's
this
finish the
time.
meeting
Okay.
and just vote.
If you could give us the,
But let's finish the meeting and vote.
let's hear the suggested recommendations, please, Joe.
Well, wait a
Yes,
second,
sir.
wait a second.
Oh, I'm sorry, I realize, I
have a
apologize,
question.
Commissioner
A
Stone.
couple of questions. Joe,
Yes,
could you
sir.
go back to your multicolored red building for me for a second? What is that little appendage, that little red
In the back.
rectangular thing in the back?
That is covered porch. So the 2 brown on either side are open porch. The red is covered porch.
But it doesn't extend down to the ground? Is it 2-story covered? Or is it,
It is elevated. So the
it's
porch is
so
elevated with
so
the
you
home.
can walk underneath that?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so that doesn't count as an overhang? So they could go to the wall behind?
No,
below
that counts. It's an elevated structure, so we do go to the outside of that deck.
It's
Yes.
not overhang.
Okay. The second question I have on the thing is that white 10-foot space between the green lawn and the gray asphalt, that circle there that the 20-foot goes to, but does not include that white circle. What is that?
That is part of the right-of-way for the cul-de-sac. So the gray is where the actual pavement is, but the right-of-way of the cul-de-sac is where the green ends and that white space is, basically. It's what you could consider the shoulder of the roadway.
I see. All right. But if we ignored that, then he would have 30 feet if he went to the asphalt.
It's not his property, so we couldn't possibly.
We can't.
Yeah.
We can't count that.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. I don't have any further questions.
Commissioner Scraggs, any comment?
No.
Okay. Looking at this, if he were to remove the slight projection that he has on his home plan in the great room, which appears to be somewhere around 2 feet, give or take, and he were to move the deck back that 2 feet and then slide the house, would that get us to the point where now we need zero variance, kind of following along with what Commissioner Bramblett said? So everything gets shifted back. Now we might not need any variance because he's now got his proper front setback. Is that something that was ever considered?
Something that we're not designing the applicant's application for him.
All right, thank you. That's all I have.
Can we hear the conditions, please?
Oh, yes. So number 1 is the single-family dwelling must maintain a 19-foot waterfront setback from the mean high water line, and I currently have it written as a 20-foot setback from the edge of the right-of-way. We can change that to 22 feet, because that'll make up the 2 feet based on the waterfront
And
setback.
just for clarity, Commissioner Stone, is from the front property line instead of edge of right of way.
Okay,
It does
front
sound like
property
it's
line.
pavement, yeah.
You can do that. Okay, so it'd be, and a 22-foot setback from the front property line. 2, an engineered stormwater management system acceptable to the county engineering division is required to be installed at time of permitting. 3, a grading and drainage plan prepared by a professional engineer licensed in the state of Florida must be submitted, providing all the items listed in LDC Chapter 6, Sections 6420A and B2. 4, runoff and erosion control measures shall be installed to protect water bodies, wetlands, and/or adjacent properties before starting land disturbance activities as per Citrus County Code, Section 42-172C. And number 5, a tie-in survey demonstrating the maintenance of the required 19-foot waterfront setback from the mean high water line and a 22-foot setback from the front property line must be submitted to and approved by the Land Development Division within 30 calendar days of establishing the lowest habitable floor level.
Thank you. Any comments? Okay. At this time, I open up to the public. Anybody wishing to speak in favor of this application, please step forward.
Is she supposed to have any questions for staff?
Hey, on the approval of this application, I'm sorry, let me jump in. I'm going to jump your spot real quick. I'm waiting for Avalon. My name's Randy Versello. I live in 18838 West Coconut Court. I'm a couple of houses away from the prospective house being built. The neighbors didn't really have an objection to the house itself. What the problem that the neighbors have, and I think Joe probably got this in his reports from other neighbors who sent you items, is the drainage and the possibility of a dock on the back of this property. The deepest part of that channel is right behind this property, and we run right up against that riprap when we come out. I live on one side of the street, but I actually keep my boat on another neighbor's property on a lift on the other side. And we have problems with the access level there, especially at low tide, trying to get in and out of that spot. That water is the deepest right behind that house. The other issue we run into is every time it rains, and unfortunately I had a little problem with my colored printer this morning.
Every time it rains, that whole section of that circle down there floods. It not only floods that property, but the house to the left. That gentleman has actually put down block in his driveway where it's so muddy it takes 4 or 5 days to even think about drying up. I went and took pictures this morning. As I said, I had technical difficulties trying to get the pictures printed. But our problem isn't with the house itself. It isn't with the setbacks of the house. The problems we have is completely with drainage, flooding that end of the court, and then also the possibility of a dock. And I thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application?
Sure.
Just 1 second.
Wait till rebuttal.
Okay.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Anyone in opposition? None. Seeing none, if you'd like to make any comments before we return to a vote?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention a couple of things. Not only am I the permitting and consulting, I'm involved in a lot of my owner builders' designs, and his back porch was 10 feet and he's down to 6 feet now, so he's already reduced that quite a bit. He will be more than glad to go with a 19-foot rear waterfront setback. The front setback is actually 25 feet by code, but the average is 27, so by granting that 3 feet and the front, we're only a couple feet off of what we could get if I came in without asking for any variance. And he's going to be a good neighbor. He actually bought 2 lots at the end to make sure he had more than enough room for drainage, and to reinsure this gentleman and the neighbors, stormwater management and drainage is required at permitting. So local engineering is the engineering firm that we've already got on bay in order to address any sort of drainage. And by building the house, at that point it should help the neighbors, because he'll be keeping the drainage on his own site. So I appreciate the board going with the variance being approved with the conditions that Mr. Hockaday has put in there. I text my customer, and Mr. Villain owns several restaurants in Orlando and couldn't get a ride today, and he's in agreement with those conditions. Thank you.
Thank you.
The new amended ones?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
With that, any discussion by the board?
I have something.
Yes.
I would just like to say yes.
I'm like him, I'm tired too.
I am in favor of this application with the amended conditions. And sir, I mean, I do hear your comments, but I think Ms. McKenzie, as she has pointed out, what she's saying is the conditions include that this applicant will then have flood and drainage and everything when he develops this property. That should help with your flooding situation, not hurt you,
Correct.
hopefully.
Correct. Somebody backfilled this lot, and
Yeah.
they did it improperly.
Yeah.
So they
Exactly.
didn't level it out or drain it.
And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I just have one on the drainage part. I actually did a site visit during a rainstorm, so I understand what you're saying about the flooding, because it was definitely probably 6-8 inches of water in a matter of a few minutes. But one thing I did notice, as I'm a stormwater guy from FEMA, is that both houses on both sides has been built up. So my only concern is this house being built up with the soil as well to create a bigger dam, or is there an easement or the drainage system going to be in the front yard as well as the rear? Yes.
If you go back to the site plan, going 19 feet and closer in the back does limit where, he's going to have to do a berm or a swale, but I'm not real good at the thingy yet.
not working.
Okay,
It's not
okay.
working
Oh,
today.
good. How is me? If you're standing in the street looking at the home, to the left there's a lot of green area, and to the right, I think he's going to use those for basically, for lack of a better word, baby DRAs, that he can withstand the water within those 2 areas. And with it being 2 lots, I think he has more than enough room than he has on a lot of the other ones that are tighter.
So there's no drainage easement on this, either
No.
one of these 2 lots?
No, sir.
No.
This is an older platted subdivision, and there isn't any drainage or utility easements in this subdivision.
Thank you.
You're welcome, thank you.
Any other comments? I just have one. I'm not going to be voting in favor of this application. I think that with a little bit of extra homework, we could have had this approved without any variances at all. And with that, be looking for someone to make a motion.
Mr. Chair, for the
Yes.
purpose of a motion, the Planning and Development Commission finds application number V-21-16 consistent with the Citrus County Land Development Code and is in keeping with intent of the policies of the Citrus County Comprehensive Plan, and that this board approves with the amended conditions of the application based upon the evidence and testimony presented and the staff report and conclusions regarding this petition with the conditions that we've already discussed.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. We have a first from Commissioner Bramblett and a second from Commissioner Worthington. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Motion carried. Seeing as we do not have our growth management director, is there anything else that the
Your next meeting, you'll have 3 applications. Nothing I don't expect like this time. Thank you all very much for your thoughtful comments today. I appreciate it. August, looking ahead, August meetings are not happening. We may have some last minute, reschedulings, but right now, if you want to go on vacation, August is a great month, okay? Thank you.
Joanna.
And do we have any comments from the commissioners?
I just wanted to thank Joanna for that.
Thank you.
I have no power over it, but thank you.
Motion, meeting adjourned.
But that don't mean you get